time to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A convicted drug dealer is arrested in connection with the killing of Olivia Pratt. Corbell, he's thought to be the intended target as police raids take place across Liverpool.
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock on the 25th of August. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Ellie Costello.
Whether you're watching or listening, we thank you for your company. And leading our news this morning, this is what we've got. The man who was the target of a gangland shooting that led to the death of Olivia Pratt Corbell has been named as Joseph Nee.
The man is reportedly in a stable condition and has been arrested for further questioning in relation to the killing as police continue to raid homes across Merseyside.
Students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland will receive their GCSE results this morning. It's the first time the grades will be based on in-person exams since the start of the pandemic.
Boris Johnson has visited Ukraine for its Independence Day, telling the UK to endure the cost of living crisis and rising energy bills because Ukrainians are paying in their blood.
Now that comes ahead of an Ofgem announcement tomorrow of the new energy price cap. It's expected to be over £3,500 for the average household.
Well, how are you feeling about that rise in the energy price cap? Do let us know. GB Views at gbnews.uk or you can tweet us at gbnews.
You can also subscribe. Subscribe always suggests to me that you have to pay, but you don't pay.
No, it's free.
Just press
no
a button
excuses.
And you become a sort of a member on YouTube and you get all the latest on the big stories that we are putting out there, and it's on at GB News. So we've got our own channel. The app is very, very good and you could listen or you can watch that. We just appreciate you being part of the audience. Thank you.
Now, the man believed to be the intended target of the shooting in Liverpool that killed 9-year-old Olivia Pratt Corbell has been identified as Joseph Nee.
He's 35 years of age. He's a convicted burglar. He's a convicted drug dealer. He's from Dovecot, and he is understood to be in a stable condition after being injured in the shooting. Merseyside police have refused to publicly identify Nee, but say the man injured would be recalled to prison for breaching the terms of his release. The police are urging anyone with information to come forward.
Well, we're joined in the studio now by crime and policing commentator Danny Shaw. Good morning to you, Danny. So bring us up to speed with what we know. What are the developments on the ground in Merseyside?
Well, police are going all out to try and find the perpetrator of this absolutely horrific murder. And they will be using the intelligence that they have. They will be trying to identify this person. They've been given some names already. And I think there is a sort of a quiet confidence that they will get their man. They'll also be questioning Joseph Nee, who's in hospital at the moment, wanted. He was wanted because he had allegedly breached his licence conditions and will be returned to prison, we are told, when he's released from
So,
hospital.
Danny, let's get it straight. Nee would have been running away from this gunman, as we understand it, and he goes into Olivia Pratt-Corbell's home. The gunman doesn't desist. He fires off a shot at Nee. It hits Olivia's mum, but carries on and kills Olivia. It hits her in the chest.
Yeah, so she was a completely innocent victim of some sort of feud, we believe, or some kind of organised crime hit. Nee was the intended target. That is what it's looking like.
You say there's a quiet confidence from the police that they will get the shooter. What do you think that's based on? Would he be turned in, as it were? Would he be informed upon, or what?
Well, I think Merseyside Police has got a good track record in terms of organised crime. Just last week, it was rated outstanding in its efforts in tackling organised crime by the policing watchdog, the Inspectorate of Constabulary. They got the person that murdered Rhys Jones in 2007. Most of the perpetrators of these crimes are brought to justice, and they will be putting every single resource necessary into getting this. It was such a horrific crime that I think someone out there will pass the information that Merseyside Police need to identify this person. I'm not saying it's going to be easy or quick, but I think that there's a sense that they will get him.
Because Olivia died, we tend to concentrate and treat this as a gun crime, but really behind all of this is drugs.
Absolutely. I mean, these gangs are formed for a reason. They're formed to make money, and they make money principally through drugs, through illegal drugs, heroin and crack cocaine, cannabis as well, and some other drugs as well, but principally heroin and crack cocaine. And we can see from the latest figures that since around 2014, 2015, there's been a rise in the use of drugs, and there's also been a rise in serious violence, not just gun crime, but knife crime as well. It was sort of ticking up before the pandemic. There was a dip because of the pandemic. It was harder to get drugs into the country, less people on the streets, less serious violence and so on, but it's starting to edge up again. This year we've seen a spate of shootings, not just in Merseyside, but also in London. There were 4 fatal shootings in July and August. That's very high by the standards of the UK.
And Danny, why is that happening? Because gun violence is relatively rare in the UK, but we were even hearing yesterday that was the 3rd shooting in Merseyside in a week. So is this a relatively new problem at this kind of level?
Well, it's not a new problem in as much as, gun crime has been at much higher levels if you go back 15, 20 years. And it is still fairly rare in the UK. I mean, England and Wales, the year 2020 to 2021, there were 35 fatal shootings. That's around about 6% or so of the total number of homicides. It's not, it's pretty unusual, thankfully, in the UK, because we have tough gun controls. It's not necessarily straightforward to get hold of firearms, but you have to be absolutely vigilant, because where there are drugs available, where there's a supply and a demand for drugs, then the gangs will try and reinforce their territory or settle feuds, and they will use sometimes firearms to do that, or to fire off warning shots, or in revenge or retaliation because some other gang member or some other rival gang is breaking into what is their, essentially they believe is their market.
Does an event like this, the killing of a 9-year-old girl, does that demonstrate that the government is not winning this war on drugs?
Look, I don't think you should term it a war on drugs, because a war suggests something you can win. I don't believe you're going to win a war on drugs. Sadly, it's a fact of life. There's always going to be illegal drugs. There are always going to be people who take them and people who supply them. So what you can do is try and bear down on it on various angles. You bear down on it through law enforcement. You bear down on it through education and awareness. And for people who are the teenagers who are getting drawn into this and the school kids, you've got to give them other pathways out of it, to try and sort of, get them out of the gangs or avert them from getting drawn into the gangs. When they get into their 20s and 30s, like apparently some of these people are, I mean, we know that this guy Joseph Nee, the intended target, was a convicted drug dealer, jailed for burglary, dangerous driving, car theft, and so on. When you get to that stage, it's very, very difficult to avert people off the path. All you can do really is lock them up for a long time.
Danny Shaw is a crime and policing commentator. We're going to be hearing from him again later in the programme. For the moment, Danny, thank you very much indeed for your time and your analysis. The time is 6:09. Good morning to you.
Now, Boris Johnson has made a surprise visit to Ukraine to mark the country's 31st anniversary of independence from the Soviet Union.
Speaking with President Zelensky, the Prime Minister reiterated Britain's unwavering support, as he called it, for Ukraine and pledged an extra £54 million in military support.
Well, Mr Johnson's visit comes as Ukraine marks 6 months since the Russian invasion began.
For more on the developments, let's speak to a journalist that's been covering the war since the invasion, Stefan Weikart. Good morning, Stefan.
Good morning.
What does Johnson's visit to Ukraine actually mean? What power, if any, does it carry?
Well, for the Ukrainians, it's he's a big symbol. He's maybe the main person, the symbol for Western support to the country. And that he comes on a visit on Independence Day yesterday, on a day where actually there was fear that Russia will make large bombardments of Ukraine. It just, it strengthened the mood in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians see that as a symbol of the support from the UK and its Western allies more broadly.
Received by the people of Ukraine, and how do the people of Ukraine feel about his treatment here in the UK? He's resigned as Prime Minister when his cabinet essentially turned against him. It's a bit of a juxtaposition, isn't it?
It is. Like in Ukraine, he's just a symbol of Western support. He's maybe the most famous Western leader. You will see around the cities murals of him, like paintings on the walls. Like I was just in southern Ukraine near the front line where a new one was just painted. You will see in the Kiev, they make cakes with him and his, trademark hair on the, on cakes. He's very like an idol. He's seen as a hero in Ukraine. And yes, what's going on domestically in the UK, people talk about it, of course. They are sad to see him resigning. They would like to keep him in the office. If it was the Ukrainians, I think he will still be Prime Minister after September. But it's not something they talk a lot about, because whatever is going on in the UK is something domestic in the UK, and Ukrainians have a lot to think about already, about the war and the economic problems and everything, all the issues that Ukraine is facing right now.
A lot of people just wondering why the trip anyway, because he's not in a position to help Ukraine from here on in.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Boris Johnson would have to answer that. It was also a big surprise for a lot of Ukrainians to see this at this stage, so late in his when he's in his office. I mean, he's leaving soon, right? But I mean, anyway, for the Ukrainians, it is definitely like a symbol of freedom. He's gonna, it's a symbol of support for the Ukrainians. So he's very much welcome here in Ukraine when he comes, and then Ukrainians like it. Whether it's because, Boris Johnson has some things he wants, like how he's going to be looked upon after he leaves office, or he has his own motive, I don't know. But I can just say for the Ukrainians, it's always important when foreign leaders come, and Boris Johnson specifically.
Tell us about where you're at the moment and how you see things around you. We were talking to various analysts yesterday, and they were saying that the next 6 months is going to be very, very important. They feel reinforcements are on their way to Ukraine, but it will take 6 months, and Ukraine will have to get through winter.
Yeah. Right now I'm in Western Ukraine, and it's kind of like getting back to kind of normal, but I just spent like time in the 2 different front lines, because right now I will say that there is 2 wars within the war. I was in Eastern Ukraine at the front line in there, and there it's still like Russia who is moving, huge bombardments. They have much more artillery than Ukraine, and Ukraine is trying desperately to defend and hold the line. A lot of deaths in Eastern Ukraine still. And then you have the front line in southern Ukraine, where, the Ukrainian President Zelensky announced a counteroffensive to push out the Russians from part of southern Ukraine. And there, the picture is a bit different. It's still Ukraine who's pushing, and Russia who is defending, still, of course, with huge casualties on both sides. But right now, you're right. It is a interesting place in the war. Like right now, we are waiting to see whether the Ukrainians will be able to actually regain territory, or whether Russia again will be able to push and take more. Or maybe a third alternative is that the front line will kind of continue to be kind of stable, and and that fighting at some point will diminish. I mean, that's it's all up in the air right now.
And Stefan, I mean, yesterday was obviously a really significant day, the 6-month anniversary of the invasion, a day of reflection, if you will. And you've decided to stay and work. You're still there in Ukraine. When you look around you, how has the country changed in the last 6 months? How are the people feeling on the ground? Is morale still high?
Morale is definitely still high. It's more than 50% of Ukrainians who believe that they will win the war. And when you say win, it means that they're kind of expecting that they can push Russia out of the territories and back to the border before the 24th of February. When you talk to people on the streets, they're horrified about what has been going on. And what I've seen when the country changing is that the country is sticking together, to a much larger extent than I was expecting. People are opening their home for refugees. They're helping the group. In many ways, people are sticking together, but there's also a different side. The economy here is really, really bad. A lot of people are losing their jobs or getting a less salary or something like that. So people are struggling also to get by, and that will only be worse as we're heading towards winter.
Stefan Weikart, really good to speak to you this morning. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just looking ahead to something that we're going to be doing in half an hour time on the programme, and that is, we've had a heat wave, we've got rain pouring down at the moment.
Which you like your rain.
I do like it. It's nice. So basically, the heat wave has caused spiders to breed and multiply right across the country. I've witnessed this myself already today. I took it very much by surprise. There was a very large one, the size of my hand.
No, don't. I've got a phobia.
In my front hall, right, walking along. So spiders, apparently there's going to be more and more of them around over the next few days. So what do you plan to do about them? Do you do anything? Are you a spider's friend, or do you not tolerate spiders? And what is the most creepy thing that's ever come into your house? And don't say me. If there's anything that, because we've had stories, and we'll have another story. Ryland last week with the snake in his house.
Yeah.
We've got other stories today about this massive cobra thing trying to get in a window. We're going to have pictures of that as well. But what are you finding? Are you finding all sorts of insects and things trying to make their way inside your abode?
And if you are, how do you get rid of them? What are the tips and tricks?
Some people move out of their own houses. Some people leave it to the alien occupier. So if you've got a picture, you've got a tip, or you've got a tale to tell, get in touch. You know what to do. It's gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at gbnews.
OK, it's 17 minutes past 6. Let's bring you up to date with the other stories that are taking place today.
Albanian police could be brought to Britain to oversee migrant arrivals and pass on intelligence in a bid to tackle channel crossings.
The Home Office says the plan is part of a deal struck between the Home Secretary Priti Patel and the Albanian government.
The government is also being urged to, by the consumer organisation Which, to raise energy bills discount by at least 150%, or risk pushing millions of households into financial distress.
The watchdog says the existing support package is inadequate following the latest energy price cap predictions.
Drivers planning bank holiday getaways on Friday afternoon are being warned they could face severe delays.
The breakdown rescue company, the RAC, predicts tomorrow will be the busiest day for getaway trips, with the worst tailbacks likely to be between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m.
It's not going to bother me. Will that get?
You're not heading away for the weekend?
I'm going to work. That's
Are
what I'm
you?
gonna do, yes.
Oh, you're very good. He doesn't stop, this one.
No, but what is the point? I mean, it's always the same in Britain come bank holidays. The roads are just bung.
We just
absolutely
grind
packed.
to
The
a halt.
airports are packed, everything. You just think, oh, stay at home or stay in the office. So
Well, I'm
just avoid it.
gonna go see my granny
Where's your granny?
up north.
Where?
She's in Leeds.
Is she in
Yeah, she's my little Irish granny.
And are you going to drive or are you going
No, I'm gonna get the train, so
Yeah. Oh, good
prayers
luck.
for me, please. We don't want any disruption on the rail.
We don't want that. We certainly do not. Today, there'll be disruption because it's GCSE results today for lots of 16-year-old students around the country. They're being warned to expect lower grades. I mean, personally, in my day, you just expected any grade. If you got any grade, you'd have been happy. There was one exam I didn't get graded in. You might laugh.
Really?
Mathematics, I was ungraded.
Oh, no.
Ungraded. That's practically impossible.
What's he got,
to
a
do. A U. So it's, I think it's when you get under 10.
Oh,
I think that's what it is. You're ungraded.
Oh, dear.
So there you are. I think
But
just
here we are.
Count yourselves lucky you're getting a grade at all. We're talking about all of this, and we're talking about the yearly revisiting of exam stress. Think it's bad for you? What's it like being a parent?
No.
Here's the weather.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A wet start with some heavy rain expected in the southeast, sunny spells elsewhere, and those brighter conditions will work their way southeastwards, along with a fresher feel, certainly compared with how things felt in the southeast on Wednesday. That fresher air already into the north and the west arrives behind a cold front which will clear during the next few hours East Anglia and the southeast. But for a time, certainly some heavy and persistent wet weather for the likes of Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex into Kent, parts of London. By the afternoon, much of that's petering out and brighter skies follow slowly but surely across central and eventually eastern parts of England. Those brighter skies will bring plenty of sunny spells for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and temperatures at around average. But it will be breezy to the northwest of Scotland, and that breeze will push a few showers into central and western Scotland, 1 or 2 for Northern Ireland, and then through the evening some more persistent rain arriving into western Scotland as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Cloudier here overnight, but elsewhere clear spells, 1 or 2 mist patches, but otherwise a fresh night to come. A more comfortable night for sleeping, 12 to 15 Celsius. However, we start off Friday with those outbreaks of showery rain into western and southwestern Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, and eventually western parts of England as well as West Wales. The rain turns more to scattered showers in the south, but there'll be some heavy and prolonged downpours for southern Scotland and northwest England in particular, and a lot of cloud cover in a zone from central Scotland through to western England as well as Wales. Either side of that, some sunny spells and temperatures at around average for the time of year, 24 Celsius in London, 18 to 22 generally elsewhere. Saturday and Sunday we'll see high pressure building in across the UK. There'll be some rain in the far northwest across western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it'll be drier elsewhere.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very nice to see you again. 24 minutes past the hour. Still to come on your breakfast here on GB News this morning.
If you're an arachnophobic, look away, like me, at 6:45, because we're going to be discussing the wave of spiders expected to descend on the UK over the bank holiday weekend. We're going to be asking a pest control expert why it's happening and how afraid we should be.
Would you get a pest controller for spiders?
Absolutely.
Would you?
Get them out. Yes.
Would you? I've had to get them for ants. We have this outbreak, this terrible outbreak of ants that covers our house every year.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah, get them in.
They come, they look
them
at food and crumbs and anything sweet, or they get into the fridge, they do, they're horrendous.
We need the tips on what we need to be putting down. Because I've heard with spiders, you need to put out citrus fruit, you need to have lemons and limes hanging around.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And then they're drawn...
Well, I need to check this later.
They're drawn to an orange, and then what you...
Well, they're repelled by an orange. They don't like citrus. You need to open an orange or a lemon and lime, put them on the windowsills or by the doors. We'll ask what to do about the ants.
That reminds me of the Opal Fruits advert. Citrus fruits. Opal fruits made to make your wife water.
I don't know that one.
Do you not?
No, that's gone right over my head.
Orange, lemon, lime.
I don't know this one.
Adverts.
No, well, I know my adverts, don't know that one.
The only thing I find about opal fruits is they're gorgeous sweets.
Yeah.
But just all that business of opening them up.
Yeah.
Of course, they're not called opal fruits now, and they're called something else.
Well, that would be why I don't know it then.
Yeah,
you need to give me the right name.
They changed the name for them.
Wow.
I forget what they were.
We'll get across that for you. Maybe they work, who knows?
7:45 this morning, we're going to the pub. And the reason we're going to the pub?
It's because 7 in 10 pubs could close this winter due to the energy crisis. We're going to be talking to a pub landlord about what needs to be done to save them.
And you can have your view. Tell us about your local. Tell us if it's disappeared or not. Join the discussion. GB Views at gbnews.uk. You can tweet at GB News.
And tips for getting rid of spiders.
There have been a lot of sleepless nights in many households around the country last night because it's GCSE results day in England, Wales and Northern Ireland.
Yeah, most students are expected to find out their grades around 10 o'clock this morning.
Why 10 o'clock?
They do it a little bit later, I think, because for A-levels, you need to go into clearing or you need to sort out a uni place that get you in really early so you've got all the day to sort yourself out.
Oh, yeah.
GCSE, it's just, you just get given them, right? So
well,
let them have a lie-in.
Well, I always remember getting the postman came at 8 o'clock or so and you got your envelope. You could go down to school, which I think opened from 9 o'clock to see that, but I never heard that 10 o'clock. I mean, that's
It's quite late, isn't it? I mean, none of them have
eternity.
slept anyway, like you said.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
There's no point.
So a lot of students are being told to prepare for disappointment with a drop in top marks expected.
Yes, and the NSPCC, the children's charity, now says the number of children seeking counselling for exam stress has reached record levels. Well, our reporter Jeff Moody has more on this.
COVID, lockdowns, the war in Ukraine, the climate crisis. It's no surprise that Childline is reporting a 30% rise in children seeking counselling.
Well, last year, Childline delivered over 73,000 counselling sessions to children around mental health and well-being. And we know that the pandemic hit children really hard. They were out of school. Some were in households where they didn't feel safe. For some, school was that place of safety. There weren't services looking out for them. And for some, it was a really difficult time.
The difficult times didn't end after lockdown. For many, they were just beginning.
Children are concerned about environmental issues. They're concerned about the state of the world. Yes, Ukraine. They're also worried about, when we're thinking about exams, they're worried about what the future might hold for them. Are they going to get a job? They're worried about the cost of living crisis and what that means for their family. But they're also impacted by things like social media, what they see there, body image. There's a whole range of things that can really impact on children's mental health and well-being.
And now, news that the number of GCSE grades marked 7 or above is set to fall by 230,000 this year as the government attempts to combat grade inflation. Childline, backed by the NSPCC, is urging children not to stress. There are plenty of choices out there, even if their grades don't pass muster.
There is also the opportunity to take resits. There's also the opportunity to talk to people outside of education, like childline counsellors, to talk about, okay, well, what worked well for you? What are you good at? So not just seeing a number on a sheet, but actually thinking, okay, I was good at that bit, wasn't quite so good at that bit. What can I now focus on?
Plenty to focus on for the future. The focus today, those little slips of paper. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Guys, there you go. The world will be there when you open your exams, whatever you get, whatever your mark is. I mean, all this counselling business, people getting counselling for exam stress. I don't know how I've lived my life into getting through.
Well, results don't matter. I mean, you were saying there you got a U in your maths, and here you are, presenting breakfast
Here I
telly.
am.
So grades do not define you.
Yeah, and you can always lie.
And
People rarely check up your exams. People
always
say, have you got an O level in maths or GCSE? And you can say, yeah.
I do actually.
What'd you get? I used to say things like C because it wasn't too high, it wasn't too low. I go, right, yeah.
You've got it all worked out, Eamonn.
But now, of course, everything's computerised, isn't it? They're likely to know what you got. But
no, that's true.
You're not
Maybe don't
defined.
take our advice on that one.
No, but I'm telling you, here is my advice. You will not be defined by your exam results today, I can tell you that. And don't be, I just don't understand this emphasis on exams that never ever matter in your life.
No, they're built up a lot. No wonder people are stressed, but you're going to be fine whatever happens to you today. That's our message this morning. But do stay with us, because after the break, we're going to be going through the papers with David Wooding and Liz Kershaw. We'll be talking about the summer.
They haven't got a GCSE between them, those two. But anyway.
And we're also talking about the summer spider surge.
Pictures welcome.
Yeah,
Tweet them
and
to
tips,
us
thanks.
at GB News. OK, back after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Right, the time coming up to 25 to 7. Let's bring you up to date with what's happening news-wise.
The 35-year-old man believed to be the intended target of a shooting in Liverpool which killed a 9-year-old girl has been named as convicted burglar Joseph Nee. Merseyside police have refused to publicly identify Nee, but earlier said a 35-year-old man injured in the shooting would be recalled to prison for breaching the terms of his release.
Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak will go head-to-head once again in the Tory leadership hustings tonight. Yes, I'm afraid so. Polls suggest that the Foreign Secretary is the current front-runner to become the next Prime Minister.
Students across England, Wales and Northern Ireland will receive their GCSE results this morning after sitting exams for the first time since the pandemic. Grades are expected to be lower than the past 2 years when results relied on teacher assessments.
Papers now, and we do that in the company of political journalist David Wooding and the broadcaster Liz Kershaw. And Liz, could we begin with you? So that guy, Nee, who was the, we believe, intended target. I don't know why we've all this police refused to confirm, yet we've got an official photograph released and whatever. It all seems quite strange.
Well, all this criminal record was broadcast last night on the news.
Right.
You know, in and
Well,
out of prison.
so just to be clear, he's not regarded as the shooter.
No.
The shooter was after him. He runs into Olivia's house. The mother gets between Nee and the gunman. The gunman fires. It hits Olivia's mum, but goes through her and hits Olivia in the chest and kills her.
Yes, the guy who was running away and entered their house, the first thing we said when we were watching the news last night was he must know who was pursuing him.
No, why would you know? You wouldn't necessarily know if a hitman turned up.
Well, OK, but he must know who wanted him dead.
Yes, yeah.
Must have a lot of information. The thing with this is, it's the fear, isn't it? Within the criminal community, retributions, and also just the neighbourhood. I mean, the police are saying in Liverpool now, aren't they? It was front page of the Liverpool Echo. Whose side are you on? In other words, are you going to spill the beans and get what this family want? This is the headline we're talking about. Once they express they want justice for their little girl, are you going to come forward and tell what you know and risk your own family's safety, or maybe having to be relocated, you know, witness protection and all that, because these gangs are very serious, they don't mess about, or do you just keep stum and think, oh, I hope it doesn't happen to me? The trouble is that the more that people get away with it and the more these gangs take over, then the more lawless a place becomes and the more no-go areas there are, and the more powerless the police come and the more anarchic our whole society becomes. I mean, it's not... I was thinking about this. It's not new because back in the day, the 50s, 60s, you know, Soho, London, there were a lot of guns left over from the people who brought back with them from the Second World War. There's a lot of lawlessness. There were a lot of assassinations ordered by gangs. But I think the police operated in different ways in those days. They were far more able to infiltrate the communities, go in a Soho drinking bar or Manchester. My granddad had pubs in Manchester. The coppers came in. You know, they were looking for narcs. They associated with the local community. They did things in a very unconventional, probably illegal way. But,
like,
you know,
the Sweeney.
Yeah. Or earlier than that, but now it's all, oh, we'll do this, and then, lads, we have to go back to the station and fill in all the forms, follow these procedures. The slightest extraordinary occurrence in policing on the streets, an incident, then it has to be reported to the Independent Police Complaints Commission, and the sort of, you know, they're walking around with the ball and chain around their ankle and their hands tied behind their back. So maybe I'm romanticising old policing methods, but it seems like in this case, where the community might have the information that's needed, it would be a good thing to be more part of that.
And this, the conversation we were having yesterday, is that police numbers are, you know, hugely down. Liz Truss calling for 20,000 more police officers. Rishi Sunak saying we need more stop and search powers. I mean, what is the answer to...
And also, we need police to concentrate on the crimes that matter to real people.
Yeah.
There's a feeling that police are focusing on so-called hate crimes, which involves them sitting looking at a Twitter account to see what other people are being nasty to each other.
But is that really the police fault, or is that politicians' fault to direct them in that area?
Well, it might be. It might also be society's fault, because we have all become a little bit self-obsessed in that way. Can I just go back to this story? I think the things that strike it all home to me today are these pictures of little Olivia.
Yeah.
There's so many new pictures of her, and it's heartbreaking to see this pretty young little girl has been murdered.
Well, it doesn't matter if she's pretty, does it? I mean, if it's an ugly kid, it's still a loss of life.
The lovely little picture of the kid. And there's a headline in one of the papers, Daily Mail, "We hope the pictures of Olivia will haunt you," the family tell the gunman, and that's true.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying, Liz, about, you know, gang culture and the silence surrounding it, and whether somebody will come up and speak. But I think, will the killer just be motivated to speak because of what they've done? I mean, she wasn't the intended target. It's a 9-year-old little girl.
Yeah, but
like you say, these pictures are going to really haunt.
You're saying that the guy that pulled the trigger may have a conscience in all of this.
I don't think there's any sentimentality when it comes to gangs who, let's face it, are mainly dealing in drugs and violent burglaries and crime. It's all money.
It's money at the end of the day.
And I don't think, you know, I said this a couple of weeks ago, I'm the last one to be doom and gloom on this programme, but my fear is that as people become hard-working people with kids, are finding it harder and harder to just survive, I think there's going to be less regard for the law and, you know, more money-based crime. I think we've really got to get our law enforcement sorted out and soon.
David, let's go to you. And this is the Eye. Front page of the Eye says, Labour's money troubles deepen. And apparently there are various departments within the Labour Party that fundraise for their own offices, which the leader doesn't like this. Explain this one to him.
Yeah, it's a good little scoop, this. Effectively, it's a problem for Keir Starmer about money, but also about his leadership. Now, what happens when trade unions donate to the Labour Party? Sometimes they donate to the office of a specific MP. So that helps the MP to hire more staff and so forth. Now, surprise, surprise, people like Wes Streeting, who's touted as a future leader, has had £136,000 donated in the past year. And another one, Rosina Allen Khan, has had about 24,000 donated to her office since December. Now, the reason Keir Starmer, in my view, is asking for them to stop donating to specific offices is twofold. One, he needs the money because the trade unions aren't giving as much money to the Labour Party as they were, and he's got a big financial crisis in the party. But two, it curbs the activities of those people who are fancying their chances of becoming the next leader. I mean, if you look at the figures, the trade unions gave £7 million last year. In 2020, it was £12.5 million. And accounting for inflation, that's a massive drop. And the membership has fallen quite substantially too. And I think the amount from trade unions, if last remember, it was 88% of donations to the Labour Party came from the trade unions when Jeremy Corbyn was leader. That's fallen to 58% under Keir Starmer. So he has a funding issue and a leadership issue.
David, wasn't this all foreseeable? I mean, if Keir Starmer is telling his front benchers not to be on the picket lines, not to be seen on the picket lines, he's distancing himself from his traditional Labour voters, his trade unions. I mean, this is where the money comes from.
Yeah, exactly. And he is trying to walk this tightrope between supporting the working man and woman and the trade unions, which is the bread and butter of the Labour Party, while at the same time appealing to the people out there who view things slightly differently now these days, and showing that he's a tough guy and realising that they're all suffering as a result of the rail strikes and other industrial action.
Liz, let's talk about the tough Home Secretary, Priti Patel. Front page of the Mail says, fast track to deport Albanian boat migrants. So the idea is, a lot of people say that there are Albanian gangsters behind shipping migrants across the Channel, but Priti Patel has come up with a deal to send the migrants back to Albania.
Well, it sounds marvellous within the hour. So you get picked up in the Channel, dumped on the dockside in Dover, and within an hour you're on your way back across the channel. I'm sure most people would applaud that. 60% of people arriving in boats, and there were 1,250 or so on Monday, are Albanians. Now, most people might not know exactly where Albania is, but A, it is in Europe, if not in the EU, and it's nestled between Montenegro, where my friend just went on a lovely package holiday, like you do to Croatia, and below Albania is Greece. So if you're really fed up in Albania, why not slip over the border into, you know, one of the lovely Greek islands, or head north to Montenegro, which is very open and welcoming. Why come here? It is because the gangs make them, you know, wonderful promises about the future that they'll have here, and they've got the whole supply line set up to get them here. But they have no business being here. It's not a country at war. Albania used to be, I haven't checked this week, but say 20 years ago, after Haiti in the Caribbean, it was the second poorest country in the world. So I'm not saying it's a picnic living in Albania, but it's certainly not somewhere where you're in fear of war and torture and hunger and famine and deprivation.
Is that what you're talking about, Rwanda?
No.
Okay.
So suddenly there's this vast influx of Albanians, and it's all commercial. It's all by profiteering gangs.
But OK, what's in this for the government of Albania? You know, if it's saying the Home Secretary struck a deal, what is this deal? There has to be money involved in this.
Yeah, probably. But also, does Albania, as a nation that's presumably trying to pull itself up by the boots, really want mass emigration of its young men? And they are. Look at the pictures again this week. People arriving on the boats are young, fit, healthy males. And as it's always claimed by the charities helping the migrants across the channel that a lot of them are highly educated, professional, skilled people. So does a country like Albania really want its doctors and lawyers?
What do you make of this, David? Is this too good to be true?
Well, I have to say, the first thing I thought when I read this morning is it'll never happen. And I hope that doesn't come across as me being a cynic, which I'm not. But, you know, the Rwanda plan went off the rails because the lawyers got involved. And you wonder what the activists will be planning now to try and derail this one. They'll have to work quick if they're going to do it, but I just have this feeling that if Priti Patel can't sort this one out, and she's a woman with great will in this area, despite lots of people criticising her, I don't know anybody else who can sort this out, and she's failed so far. And
we can't underestimate as well the power of the human trafficking gangs that we're talking about in Albania. I mean, we were hearing yesterday, weren't we, about a free bus shuttle service running from Albania all the way up to Calais, encouraging young men to get on shuttle buses.
And the whole supply chain for inflatable dinghies from China, they import them in bulk into Europe, and then there's a whole distribution service for those as well. Can I just say quickly, it's changed. When you and I were talking about this on Sky, Eamonn, 2015, what I witnessed firsthand, because I'm on the beach now in Kent, is the dribbles of inflatable boats, dinghies, of perhaps 6 guys turning up maybe twice a week on the beach, making it to the beach. It's now so much more organised because there's this system going now where they get picked up. They don't even have to try and get to the shore.
It's like a shuttle service.
Yeah, they sail into British waters, or at least halfway across the channel, and then call for help, and then they get picked up by the Coast Guard or the Navy or the RNLI, and they're taken to Dover, where there's a specific processing centre, and they get taken to local hotels. They're given new mobile phones, they're given food, they're medically examined, and it's it's a wonderful service now, and it just facilitates it.
We get the idea. We go to the Daily Express front page here, and it's Boris Johnson, and he's saying he's sending the British public a message which not everybody may agree with. He's saying, suck it up, your fuel bills, suck up the pain, because basically Ukraine is going through a lot worse than you are.
Yes, he's paid another of his last sort of shrouded in secrecy visits to Kyiv to meet President Zelensky, showing solidarity, which I think is a good thing, and pledging an extra £54 million in military aid. What he's saying is right, really. He's saying, well, you know, we may be struggling with our energy bills, but just think what the poor people of Ukraine are having to put up with Russian war crimes. Yes, I agree with you, Eamonn, that the message is right, but what will people think back here? Because when it comes down to it, many people are selfish and it's their own. They don't think about geopolitical issues and wars in a far foreign land. They're thinking more about how they're getting through to the next day. And, you know, with the price energy cap set to go up to £3,500 and then up to £5,000 in the new year, people probably won't be thinking too much about what's going on in Ukraine.
Especially if you're on a pay-as-you-go electricity meter or gas meter, because I was reading this week that people are having to put in, you know, 15 quid every couple of days. And with those, if you don't put it in, you do have a small emergency buffer supply. But if you haven't got the readies to put in, you just can't turn the lights on or cook a meal or heat your house. So somebody who's sitting in the dark, going to work the next day, but is really struggling to keep the head above the water, that's more immediate than, I don't know what my bill's going to be in 3 months. Are they going to sit there and say, I think it's, really excellent that the world is taking on this tyrant from Russia? And already I'm reading that in Germany and Italy, there's real Ukraine war fatigue among the public, and the leaders are losing the support of the people because they just don't think it's anything to do with them.
Has it anything to do with you? Do you want it anything to do with you? We're just going to put that question out there. Just take part in the conversation and get in touch with us, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at gbnews with your view. For the moment, Liz and David, thank you both very much indeed. They're going to be back in 40 minutes' time. We're now talking about spiders and insects, and in some cases snakes, because the recent heat wave has caused spider populations to really increase right across the country.
Yeah, with false widows set to descend across the country over this bank holiday weekend. That's a new warning. Well, joining us now to discuss how harmful these spiders could be and how to get rid of them, and also what to do if you are bitten by one, is the technical manager of the British Pest Control Association, Natalie Bungay. I hope I've said your name correctly there, Natalie. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us. So why are we seeing this increase in spiders in our homes?
Good morning. Thank you for having me on today. It's one of those things. So invertebrates and insects, generally, they all increase and they do a lot better in the warmer weather. So, of course, since we've been seeing that, we're going to see a lot more activity. And the false widow spider that you mentioned is certainly on that list. And also because we're moving towards autumn, they're going to be looking to find a mate and fertilise their eggs, getting ready for overwintering so then they can start the season again next year. That's generally the reason we see an increase in any type of invertebrate. And again, the false widow spider is exactly the same.
Explain then the attraction that a home offers to insects at this time of the year.
So, of course, it's going to be shelter. I mean, generally, whether it's winter or summer, spiders are around, but we're just going to notice them a little bit more, again, like I mentioned, when we move into autumn and it starts cooling down. That's when they'll start moving into homes because it's warm and it's comfortable, and they've also got some cracks and crevices where they can be hiding and be safe. So, and it's not just the false widow spider. We're going to see house spiders running around. I've seen quite a few of them already making their way towards the home. So, we're going to see a few more about in the next few weeks and months.
Do they ever have a built-in intelligence where they see humans as predators? I mean, are they frightened of humans or not? Have they copped on that they're more likely to be stood on, for instance, or swatted if they enter a home than not?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll probably notice whenever you see a spider, if you make a sudden movement, it's going to run in the opposite direction. Anything that's smaller than us would be sensible to do so. But it is also important. These spiders, they're really beneficial to the ecosystem. They actually are quite good pest controllers themselves. They eat, capture and prey on other small invertebrates, other flies and insects. So, they can actually keep those things down in your home. So if we can leave them be, that's a great thing to do.
want to leave them be. If we are scared of spiders, like myself, how would you suggest that you discourage them from entering your house, or perhaps how to get rid of them but in a humane way? So I've been reading this morning that citrus fruit is really helpful. So if you cut up lemons and limes, and also menthol rub. Apparently spiders don't like mint. Is any of that true?
It's one of those, the studies are very limited on things like that, herbal remedies, but there is absolutely no reason why not to try that. You know, you can, if you've got some mint in your garden, you know, get a little bunch of it and put it in various corners around the rooms, and it can sometimes deter them and prevent them. However, if you don't like seeing the spiders in your property, then if you can capture them, you know, the whole glass and paper technique, move them outside, because like we said, they are beneficial invertebrates, and we want to be able to maintain them. But you can buy things like sticky traps that you can put in corners of your room that can capture them and just keep the numbers down. But as I said, from certainly our point of view, if you can leave them be, that is an amazing thing to do for the ecosystem. But traps are out there if you need them.
Well, Natalie, a lot of people may need you and your services, because it's not just spiders that are trying to get through the doors. My very good friend Rylan, he was cornered by a snake last week in his house, but his snake was not as big as this snake. So we'll show you this snake here and the story. So what is that what is that as an albino cobra, did somebody tell me?
It's a python, it looks like to me, yeah, like an Albanian. It's someone's pet, I would imagine, that's escaped, and looks pretty scary.
God. But you say it's escaped, but it looks as if it's heading back into someone's home, and it slithered through that open window in the morning there. So what's going on with snakes?
I mean, in terms of snakes in the UK, we've got grass snakes. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw a snake out and about. We haven't had any reports into the BCA with regards to an increase of call-outs for it or anything. But the other important thing to remember is that snakes in the UK, they do have a protected status, and in terms of pest control, we wouldn't necessarily be the people to call. You want to get in touch with the RSPCA, and there's other, possibly the Natural History Museum have got a lot of information on their websites regarding them. But RSPCA rather than pest control, if you're worried about snakes in your property.
Well, I know I'd be calling the armed police. I mean, this is Ryland's snake here, which did you happen to know what that snake is? This is in his bedroom. He's on top of the bed, shouting and screaming, looking down at that. But would you happen to know there's a sort of white ring around its neck or head there? Do you happen to know what that is?
Yeah, you put me on the spot there. I'm certainly not a snake expert. As I said, we don't deal with them, but it does look pretty scary, doesn't it, Eamonn?
Oh, it certainly does. So you'd be calling the police or somebody with a taser or shotgun or something there with that, but that is pretty scary to have that in your home there. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, Natalie, was ants. We're particularly plagued with ants, and I tell you, it happens every year. It happens every year, and they are hard little ones to get rid of.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I mentioned in the beginning about invertebrates or insects, how they thrive better in warmer weather. And of course, we're all talking about climate change and how the UK is maybe getting a bit warmer and seasons are extending a little bit in terms of how active ants, for example, are. So rather than maybe being active from May to September, it may be that they're more active now from early April to possibly October, November, just because we're seeing warmer temperatures. And obviously, this extended period of time means they've got more time for breeding and increasing their colony. So again, you might consider that their nests are getting larger because of that. And also we do have some invasive species that have come into the UK lately, and they're particularly prolific. They're almost 10 times as prolific as our native garden ants. So yeah, there are a lot of ants around at the moment. And also when the temperature starts kind of getting a bit funny and we get humid weather, that's when they'll start mating and flying. And of course that can really seem like they've increased in numbers because they're around our face rather than just down at the floor.
Well, Natalie, I'm keeping your number, so in case I need you at an emergency call out. Natalie Bungay is a technical manager of the British Pest Control Association. Thank you, Natalie. And
thank you.
Thank you. Tell us about the pests that have got into your house. And they mightn't all be animals. They might be people as well. Send us pictures of what your house has been invaded with or by in the past, what you're frightened with, and any evidence you have. Please do let us have it.
Yep, the address there, gbviews@gbnews.uk. OK, stay with us. We're going to have more on GCSE results day as school children prepare to discover their grades. That's after this.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A wet start with some heavy rain expected in the southeast, sunny spells elsewhere, and those brighter conditions will work their way southeastwards, along with a fresher feel, certainly compared with how things felt in the southeast on Wednesday. That fresher air already into the north and the west arrives behind a cold front which will clear during the next few hours East Anglia and the southeast. But for a time, certainly some heavy and persistent wet weather for the likes of Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex into Kent, parts of London. By the afternoon, much of that's petering out and brighter skies follow slowly but surely across central and eventually eastern parts of England. Those brighter skies will bring plenty of sunny spells for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and temperatures at around average. But it will be breezy to the northwest of Scotland, and that breeze will push a few showers into central and western Scotland, 1 or 2 for Northern Ireland, and then through the evening some more persistent rain arriving into western Scotland as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Cloudier here overnight, but elsewhere clear spells, 1 or 2 mist patches, but otherwise a fresh night to come. A more comfortable night for sleeping, 12 to 15 Celsius. However, we start off Friday with those outbreaks of showery rain into western and southwestern Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland and eventually western parts of England as well as West Wales. The rain turns more to scattered showers in the south, but there'll be some heavy and prolonged downpours for southern Scotland and northwest England in particular, and a lot of cloud cover in a zone from central Scotland through to western England as well as Wales. Either side of that, some sunny spells and temperatures at around average for the time of year, 24 Celsius in London, 18 to 22 generally elsewhere. Saturday and Sunday we'll see high pressure building in across the UK. There'll be some rain in the far northwest across western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it'll be drier elsewhere.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The man believed to be the intended target of the shooting that killed Olivia Pratt-Korbel is arrested.
Just after 7 o'clock on this, the 25th of August. Breakfast on GB News. Eamonn, Holmes and Ellie Costello here. And here's what's leading our news this morning.
The man who was the intended target of a gangland shooting that led to the death of Olivia Pratt-Korbel has been named as Joseph Nee. The man is reportedly in a stable condition in hospital and has been arrested for further questioning as police continue to raid homes across Merseyside.
Students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland will receive their GCSE results this morning. First time that grades will be based on an in-person exam since the start of the pandemic.
Boris Johnson has visited Ukraine for its Independence Day, telling the UK to endure the cost of living crisis and rising energy bills because Ukrainians are paying in their blood.
It comes ahead of an Ofgem announcement tomorrow of the new energy price cap expected to be over £3,500 for the average household.
And remember, you can join in on any of our discussions this morning by emailing gbnews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
You can also subscribe to the GB News channel. You can download the app as well. The GB News channel is on YouTube. You get all the latest on the big stories there should you need them. If not, just stay with us. So the man believed to be the intended target of the shooting in Liverpool that killed Olivia Pratt-Korbel has been identified as Joseph Nee.
The 35-year-old convicted burglar and drug dealer from Dovecot is understood to be in a stable condition after being injured in the shooting.
The police in Merseyside have refused to publicly identify Neil, but they say the man injured in the shooting would be recalled to prison for breaching the terms of his release.
Well, for more on the developments, let's speak now to the crime and policing commentator Danny Shaw. Good morning to you, Danny. So bring us up to speed with what we know about the events that took place in Merseyside.
Well, what we know is that Joseph Nee was being pursued by an unidentified gunman, and he went into a house. Nee went in to try and get away from the gunman. The gunman shot indiscriminately trying to get Nee, and in the process hit poor Olivia and fatally wounded her. 9-year-old girl, completely innocent in all of this, has been murdered, and her mother was injured as a result. And this is just an example of the reckless behaviour of people involved in organised crime who don't care about their actions and the consequences of their actions.
So there is now a manhunt on for the actual shooter. How likely is it, do you think, that the authorities will find him or her?
I think there's a sort of quiet confidence that Merseyside police will get this gunman. They've been given some names, we understand. They have a good record in tackling serious and organised crime. Just last week, they were graded outstanding in that aspect by the policing watchdog. They will have every resource available to them. They have armed officers on standby. Not saying it's going to be simple, not saying it's going to be straightforward, not saying it's going to be immediate, but I think the chances are they will get this person because there will be revulsion at what's happened, and that may tip someone over into giving that crucial bit of information that will lead police to this individual.
But Danny, let's not sugarcoat this. This is the third shooting in Merseyside in just a week. That suggests to me a gun problem or maybe a drugs problem. Whatever it is, it's gangland warfare out of control.
There is a particular spate in shootings in Merseyside, there's no doubt about that. And that's a real concern, because if that spirals out of control, then you get more tit-for-tat retaliation and so on, shootings happening. We've also seen that in London. There were 4 fatal shootings in July and August. That's a very unusual sort of pattern, because overall gun crime in the UK, and should emphasise this, is relatively low. We have very strict gun controls in Britain. And the pattern of gun crime over the last 20 years has been that it's been coming down, but we have seen a bit of an uptick in recent years before the pandemic.
So, Danny, are we talking about, what is the real problem here? Is the real problem gun crime, or is the real problem drugs crime?
I think drugs is at the root of it, Eamonn. That is what these violent criminal gangs are fighting over. They're fighting over the drugs trade, of illegal drugs, heroin, crack cocaine. We have seen a surge in the use of cocaine in the UK over the past 10 years. as a proportion of the population, cocaine is consumed more in the UK than any other European country. And it's fertile territory and rich territory for organised gangs, and that's what causes the violent disputes, the gang crime, and also stabbings on the streets as well. Many of those have their roots in drugs.
Danny, how do you even go about tackling this? Liz Truss is talking about putting 20,000 more police officers on the streets. Rishi Sunak is talking about the increase in stop and search powers. Is this more about a focus on winning the war on drugs?
Well, I don't like that term, war on drugs, because a war suggests something that can be won. I don't think you can win the war on drugs. There's always going to be a drug problem, unfortunately, of some description. But I think what you have to do is tackle it from two ends, principally. Law enforcement, yes, more police officers, better joined up policing between the various organised crime units, the National Crime Agency. There are regional organised crime units. Sometimes it's not very well joined up. And the second thing you need to do is, at a sort of younger level, education and awareness about the risks of drug taking and stopping young people, teenagers, from being drawn into gangs, the attraction of being drawn into gangs. You do that by giving them pathways out. And that's one of the difficulties as we face a cost of living crisis, is that young people with no future, no jobs, will see the attractions perhaps of earning quick money through drug dealing, and then they're in that spiral of drug gangs and the violence that results.
Very depressing, but that's the reality. That's Danny Shaw you were listening to, crime and policing commentator. Thank you, Danny, very much indeed. Here we are, GCSE results day for England, Wales and Northern Ireland, with most pupils expected to find out their grades about 10 o'clock this morning.
But students have been told to prepare for disappointment, with a drop in top marks expected this year.
The NSPCC says the number of children seeking counselling for exam stress has reached record levels. Our reporter Jeff Moody has this.
COVID, lockdowns, the war in Ukraine, the climate crisis. It's no surprise that Childline is reporting a 30% rise in children seeking counselling.
Well, last year, Childline delivered over 73,000 counselling sessions to children around mental health and wellbeing. And we know that the pandemic hit children really hard. They were out of school. Some were in households where they didn't feel safe. For some, school was that place of safety. There weren't services looking out for them. And for some, it was a really difficult time.
The difficult times didn't end after lockdown. For many, they were just beginning.
Children are concerned about environmental issues. They're concerned about the state of the world. Yes, Ukraine. They're also worried about, when we're thinking about exams, they're worried about what the future might hold for them. Are they going to get a job? They're worried about the cost of living crisis and what that means for their family. But they're also impacted by things like social media, what they see there, body image. There's a whole range of things that can really impact on children's mental health and well-being.
And now, news that the number of GCSE grades marked 7 or above is set to fall by 230,000 this year, as the government attempts to combat grade inflation. Childline, backed by the NSPCC, is urging children not to stress. There are plenty of choices out there, even if their grades don't pass muster.
There is also the opportunity to take resits. There's also the opportunity to talk to people outside of education, like Childline counsellors, to talk about, OK, well, what worked well for you? What are you good at? So not just seeing a number on a sheet, but actually thinking, OK, I was good at that bit, wasn't quite so good at that bit. What can I now focus on?
Plenty to focus on for the future. The focus today, those little slips of paper. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Let's now go to Northern Ireland. Saintfield High School, as students prepare to find out their results. Our Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie, is there anticipating what is going to happen. Dougie, morning to you.
Good morning and welcome to Saintfield. Yes, this school and the school gates behind me mean quite a lot actually today. My youngest daughter will be going through these gates just after 8 o'clock to find out her results, and I must claim at this point I am on the board of governors of this particular institution behind me, so I am very, very proud of it. why is schools like this so important? Well, in Northern Ireland we have 4 different types of education. We have controlled, we have maintained, we have voluntary and we have integrated. That's an awful lot, you may say, but in that we have league tables. And this particular school behind us does quite well in those. In 2019, it was the 6th highest in the controlled non-selective post-primary results. So that was in 2019. We've had 2 years. The pupils that are now coming here today will not have seen the inside of a classroom basically in those 2 years. They started their Key Stage 4 and finished it basically on remote. And their exams today will not be assessed. They are being graded in those exams, and it is the first time since 2019 that that will happen. Now, we will be interested to see will those results go up or down, and have other schools inflated those grades in that 2-year period, and we now see the evening out of those grades and coming back towards where it was. That'll all be interesting, and I will see exactly where university places, A-level places. This school behind me in particular doesn't have a 6th year or upper 6th, so the pupils from here today, when they get their results, will not only have the stress of getting the results here, they will then have to try and go to get into a grammar school or a further education college to try and get a place there so as they can go on and get their A-levels. So all in all, there's a lot to be looked at here, more so than just grades, and looking at where our educational system will go from here.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a lovely morning. I hope it turns out a lovely morning for all your pupils there at that school in Saintfield. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. The time, 7:15.
Let's bring you up to date with the other stories taking place today.
Albanian police could be brought to the UK to oversee migrant arrivals and pass on intelligence in a bid to tackle channel crossings. The Home Office says the plan is part of a deal struck between the Home Secretary Priti Patel and the Albanian government.
The government is being urged to raise the energy bill discount by at least 150% or risk pushing millions of households into financial distress. The consumer watchdog Which says the existing support package is inadequate following the latest energy price cap predictions.
Drivers planning bank holiday getaways on Friday afternoon are being warned they could face severe delays. Breakdown rescue company the RAC predicts tomorrow will be the busiest day for getaway trips, with the worst tailbacks likely to be between 2 and 7 p.m. You have been warned.
Well, as we're just hearing, Priti Patel is launching a fast-track scheme to deal with the surge in migrants crossing the Channel in small boats. The Home Secretary has struck a deal with her Albanian counterpart to see them removed from the UK within hours. Well, joining us now for more is former Minister of State for Immigration and a Rishi Sunak backer, Mark Harper. Mark, so these are the plans that are being laid out today. Sounds good to many people, but will it actually happen, or will this be another Rwanda plan?
Well, yes, I obviously don't know the full details of the plans since they're only being set out today, but I do welcome them. I know from my time as Immigration Minister, we have had a problem with people coming from Albania purporting to be refugees, but without actually a good claim. And actually this deal that's been struck, which the Home Secretary is going to set out details of with our Albanian counterpart, I think is very welcome. One of the real benefits here is if we can deport people who have no claim to asylum much more quickly, that will, I think, disincentivise those who are coming here because they know they're not going to be able to stay here. They're going to get it turned straight round and sent back. So I think if this works, it'll be very welcome.
Very, very welcome. But Ms Patel, she is under pressure, isn't she, to deliver something to tackle this crisis in the Channel. We're seeing record numbers of people coming over, another record on Monday. But the Rwanda plan was left in limbo by legal challenges, so there will, of course, be a lot of pessimism around this sort of plan.
Yes, look, I know from my experience in the Home Office, it's very difficult. You have a lot of challenges. You're, of course, dealing with smuggling gangs and organised criminals who are some of the worst and most appalling people who take advantage of people who are desperate. And our job here is to break these criminal gangs, but they are very unpleasant people. They put a lot of resources into this. This is about making huge amounts of money, and it requires everybody on the right side of the argument, working in the Home Office, for the National Crime Agency, to work really hard and together with our international partners to break these gangs. Is it easy? No, of course it isn't. Is it worth doing? Yes, it absolutely is. And I hope the Home Secretary and her team at the Home Office and across wider law enforcement are successful in getting this to work.
It's a very challenging situation. I wanted to ask you about another big story today, which is, of course, about the energy price cap expected to rise again tomorrow to £3,500. I mean, it's absolutely horrific for so many families up and down the country. I wanted to share with you the front page of the Mirror. It says the whole country speaks with one voice, but still we are ignored. Freeze our bills now. And that comes after the Lib Dems and Labour have all called for energy price caps to be frozen or indeed lowered. What would Rishi Sunak do about the energy price cap?
Well, look, I don't think the plan that's been set out by the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats is very sensible. It's enormously expensive, because it helps absolutely everybody in the country, even people that are perfectly capable of dealing with higher energy prices. Rishi's plan is to recognise we have to do more, but it has to be a targeted plan. So there's a bit of help for everybody in terms of cutting VAT on energy prices, but with more help being targeted at those at the lower end of the income spectrum, as he did when he was Chancellor. And he said he'll set out more details of that once the regulator has confirmed the price cap level, which, as you know, it's planning on doing tomorrow. But he set out the framework for help. And by contrast, his opponent in this contest is talking about tax cuts. That doesn't help people on lower incomes or pensioners. We're going to have to give them direct help. I absolutely agree with that. And Rishi Sunak set out a very clear plan to do so, building on the plans he put in place when he was Chancellor.
Mr Harper, just 2 weeks, under 2 weeks now left to go in this Tory leadership contest. The latest polls say that Liz Truss is 32 points ahead. But your favourite, Rishi Sunak, he's fuelled speculation that he would actually reject a job in a Liz Truss cabinet. Do you know if that's the case?
Well, look, just on your first point, I don't accept the premise of the question. I've been out dealing with party members. I've been speaking to them on his behalf. I've been to events with him. We're getting a much more positive response to that. And indeed, he has been getting a much more positive response from the hustings that he's been doing. So I remember back the 2015 general election. Every poll said Ed Miliband was going to be Prime Minister, and the Conservatives won that election with a big lead in the opinion polls over Labour. So I think every vote is there to fight for. We've still got another week or so of this contest to go, and Rishi's out there meeting members across the country, fighting for every vote.
So you think Rishi Sunak could still win this?
Yes, I do. I think he's got the right plan for the country. Coming back to your questions about the energy challenge facing the country, he's got the right plans for the country. I think he's the right person to win this contest, and he's fighting for every vote right up until the close of polls next week.
Mark Harper, really good to speak to you. That's Mark Harper there, the MP for the Forest of Dean. Thank you. Now, coming up, we've got all the biggest sports stories of the day, including Glasgow Rangers qualifying for the Champions League. That's after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Time's approaching 7:25. Good morning to you, whether you're watching or listening. This is Breakfast on GB News. Still ahead, in about 20 minutes from now, we're going to the pub. 7 and 10 pubs could close over the winter due to the energy crisis. We're going to be speaking to a landlord about what needs to be done to save them. If you've got a view, if you've got a story to tell, get in touch. And Andrew Tate, he is the men's rights influencer. But how many men does he really speak for? He's famous for saying that women should get back in the kitchen. His words, not mine, has been banned from all major social media platforms. So at 8:20 this morning, we've got a couple of people debating if there is a limit to free speech or if you should be able to say what you want, however offensive it is. So you know what to do. Get involved in the conversation. gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News. Right, here comes the sport. Before we get Paul Coit involved, let's look at the back pages. The headlines are these. Ollie Robinson's return for England's test against South Africa at Old Trafford is the back of The Guardian. The Mirror sings money, money, money after Newcastle agreed a deal to sign striker Alexander Isak. 58 million quid involved there. It will take the club spending to over 200 million during this transfer window. And the Eye congratulates Glasgow Rangers after they secured a place in the Champions League group following a 1-0 away win against PSV Eindhoven. Paul's with me now. I want to start with that Rangers situation because, 10 years, that's the first time I think they're back in Europe in 10 years or so.
In the Champions League, yeah.
And they end up in the same group as Celtic.
Well, they're going to be. They're in pot 4. Yeah. Because, we could probably spend 2 hours trying to describe how the draw's going to work. So you get 4 pots. All the main seeds are in the first one. These are all the teams that won their championships or won their leagues. Then we've got the next ones down. This is where most of the British teams are. We've got Spurs and Liverpool, etc., are going to be in there. And then it goes down. And so basically, one is drawn from each pot.
Yes. So it's not all pot 4 play, everybody.
No.
Pot 4 can play pot 1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get one from each, but you can't have 2 countries, 2 teams from the same country play each other. So Scotland, so either Rangers or Celtic aren't going to have that problem. So they can't play each other because they're in the same pot.
Gotcha.
I'm confusing myself already.
But, yeah.
So then they take one from there, and so that's going to be done at 5 o'clock this afternoon. But what's always interesting is when, and I've done this, and when a lot of people, they're waiting to see who their teams are going to play. Yeah. So you wait there and you're ready to book your tickets because already the first thing is the draw is made and then the fixtures will come out a few hours later. Yeah. So everybody finds out later. So it's a matter of then jumping on booking your ticket. I've done it with Spurs v Bayern Munich. 20 quid, you think, I'm on, then you hit pay, and then the next thing, it's 350 quid. So you've got to be very quick on the mark.
And just to make you aware that the British teams in the Champions League, Man City are there, Liverpool are there, Chelsea are there, Spurs are there, Rangers are there, Celtic are there. So,
something missing? Someone missing?
So the big teams are big teams.
Is there? Well, I don't know who you could possibly be speaking about. There's always next year, Eamonn. That's what I was always told.
There's always next year, my friend.
Who cares about the Champions League anyway?
Who's happening in the transfer news? So back pages, Newcastle spending a lot of money. Alexander Isak.
Yeah, he's. This is an interesting one. It sounds like a lot of money, and it's £60 million. He's a Swedish striker coming from Real Sociedad. Hasn't scored as many goals as maybe you would want. And he's going to come into Newcastle. It looks like this is going to happen, so it's going to break their transfer fee as well. 60 million is the most that Newcastle would have spent. I'm sure they will be spending a lot more in future, because if anybody's going, oh, well, they're spending 100 million, they spent this month, it's a drop in the ocean as far as Newcastle are concerned. But the important thing is that they've got to keep under financial fair play. So they can't just be the richest club in the world and go, we're going to spend whatever we want, because they're not allowed to. But 60 million, it sounds like a lot.
Everton are selling a lot of players. Dele Alli will be one of them. He's in Turkey, in Istanbul.
Yeah.
He will complete a move to Besiktas.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. We've spoken about Dele Alli before. This was the great young player at Spurs. Then it hasn't worked for him, whatever it is, whatever the reason, it's just not working for him anymore. Gone up to Everton, hasn't worked there. Off to Besiktas. I can only see this career going one way, to be
Careful
honest.
how you say that, but anyway. Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy getting together. They're launching a new golf tournament.
Yeah, with the PGA. This is the strange one. It's indoor golf. So, obviously, Live Golf, the Saudi Arabian-backed golf tournaments, which are bringing loads of people over, and they're paying like £100 million a time for each golfer that's going to come over. So the PGA are thinking, we've got to fight back. We've got something we've got to fight back with. But instead of thinking, well, we'll just give them all the money they want, because that's the reason golfers are leaving. Yeah. They're trying this new thing, which is indoor. And from what I'm reading, it's in arenas. So you'll get golfers and they'll try and put them in teams, because it seems that every sport, when they try and relaunch something, I know we'll make it a team and then people will support them. It doesn't work that way. So they put them in a team and then they drive the ball at a huge screen. So it's like a simulator.
Oh, right.
And then once that's worked out, then they will then play the short game and they're expecting... It just sounds strange to me. I mean, it'd be interesting to go to for the novelty factor, but it just sounds like e-sports.
It does seem a gimmick, doesn't it?
It seems really gimmicky.
But then you have a whole audience, who would play golf like that anyway.
Yes.
On their simulators.
I'd miss the screen.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be much, no matter how big the screen is. But again, it sounds good for people to go along, and it's, for the novelty factor. But it's this team thing. I mean, they've done it with horse racing. I know we'll get jockeys and we'll put them in a team and people will support teams. Yeah. But when it comes to supporting teams, as you know as well as I, this goes back a long way. You can't get that feeling of supporting your team just by putting a new team together of golfers. So anyway, they're going to try and do it to go against Liv, but how it's going to work, I'm a little cynical about
Different.
But it is different. Can't argue with different.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much indeed. We'll go to the break, and right after that break, we'll be going through the newspapers. David Woody and Liz Kershaw for you this morning.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 7:33 and later this morning, students across England, Wales and Northern Ireland will receive their GCSE results after sitting exams for the first time since the pandemic. Grades are expected to be lower than the past 2 years when results relied on teacher assessments. Well, joining us now for more is the Shadow Schools Minister, Stephen Morgan. Good morning to you, Mr Morgan. Thank you so much for your time. I wanted to start by asking you about comments from the Blair Institute, which came out a little bit earlier on this week. Tony Blair, obviously former Prime Minister, saying that GCSEs and A-levels are actually no longer fit for purpose and should be scrapped. So I was wondering if Keir Starmer agreed with his predecessor.
Well, first of all, can I just congratulate all young people getting their results today? It's been a very difficult time for our country, and despite all the disruption, children have worked incredibly hard, and I thank all the teachers that have made that possible too. And all that's despite a government that have failed children at every turn. And I'm looking forward to visiting a school later to see their results. We know that there is unequal outcomes across the country, and I'm deeply worried about that. We know that in Knowlesy, the pass rate was 4 in 10 last year got GCSE pass at maths and English. Compare that to Buckinghamshire, where it was 7 in 10. So there's real inequality in the exam results. We expect to hear that later today when the data's out, and specifically around GCSEs. I'm keen to engage and listen to views, but ultimately, we want to make sure that our young people get the very best in life, and this government has failed children at every turn.
And can I ask for your comments on the Blair Institute's comments earlier this week, saying that A-levels and GCSEs should be scrapped and they're no longer fit for purpose? Is that a stance that the Labour Party takes?
Well, our focus right now is on the recovery of young people. The government commissioned someone to look at this, and he then resigned because the government didn't deliver on that programme. Our Children's Recovery Plan will put dedicated support into schools and colleges to get children back on track. In government, we will certainly look at the exam system and the curriculum system, but our priority right now and in the first few days of the Labour government will be on making sure children are back on track after all the inequality that they've had to deal with over recent years.
A big story looking to happen tomorrow is the energy price cap up to £3,500. Obviously, dreadful news for so many people up and down the country. What's Labour's plan? There's a call for the price cap to be frozen, but how's that going to be funded?
Well, you're absolutely right. And tomorrow, obviously, we will hear what the cap will be. And we've got a government that are missing action. They've said nothing of value that will make a difference to people's lives at a time that food costs are going up, fuel costs are going up, and energy costs are going up. And that's why Labour have set out a plan, £29 billion, a plan that will benefit £1,000 to each household, will make a real difference. I was with a charity yesterday in my own constituency where I heard that these plans by Labour would make a big difference. So that's what we're campaigning for. And Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss can back us and deliver a sensible plan for the country. But I regret they're not taking that on board right now.
Morgan, Shadow Schools Minister, thank you so much for your time this morning.
You're welcome.
Time now to go through the newspapers on this Thursday morning. Joining us, political journalist David Wooding, and we've got the broadcaster Liz Kershaw as well. Elizabeth, it's you we're going to start with, and We heard Stephen Morgan referring to Rishi Sunak there. We go back to lockdown time, and the Sun are saying that Rishi Sunak was ignored. He was against lockdowns.
Well, I think Rishi Sunak's saying that, or people on his behalf. I mean, is there a bandwagon Rishi Sunak won't jump on in his desperation to be the Prime Minister? He was a member of Cabinet throughout the COVID crisis, and he's now saying that throughout various opening and closing of our society and our economy, he sat there in the number 10 Cabinet room and he objected to lockdowns. Well, I don't believe him. But it's become a big thing, I've noticed in the last couple of weeks, that people are really questioning lockdowns. Various stats are coming out now, 1,500 excess deaths recently, and they can be attributed to people not seeking medical attention during lockdown or not being available to them. The economy's shot at. So I think he's sensed that, and I know on this station, I mean, the Dan Wootton show every single evening discusses the legitimacy of lockdowns. We will be having a public inquiry to find out the cost-benefit of it all. And while lockdowns made me feel safe, I don't know about you, I really felt they were worthwhile at the time. You do now have to look back and wonder. And I really don't think that people have any stomach for another one if, for example, this winter.
No, when you see the repercussions, David, and the fact that just people left so many industries and just didn't return to them again, devastation as a result. But Liz has her doubts that Mr Sunak was against these. What's your radar say on this?
Well, I did write stories at the time that Rishi Sunak take issue with what you say, Liz, on that, because at the time I was writing stories saying that Rishi Sunak was fighting to open up a little bit more.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And they were trying to keep a lid on that at the time. I mean, what he seems to be saying here is that too much voice was given to these independent medical and epidemiology experts, and nobody was questioning them. They were just in awe of them and accepting what they said as the gospel.
Follow the science.
And there was no alternative view, for instance, what we now know about the people not going in for routine checks on other issues.
But I suppose hindsight's a great thing,
isn't it? I mean, at the time, turning the clock back, we didn't know what this bug was going to do to us.
How deadly it was.
And we were all told that hospitals were going to be overwhelmed, and we were all a little bit scared and unsure of what it was about. So if you turn the clock back and put your mind at where we were all thinking at the time, it was a difficult call.
How come then, David, and we go to the front page of the Times for this, that Liz Truss can promise to say, oh, look, I'm going to take 10 billion that was due for an underfunded NHS and I'm going to put it elsewhere. I'm going to put it within social care, which desperately needs it, of course. But how can she afford to say that when everybody says the NHS is underfunded?
Well, yeah, this is how she's trying to square the circle on health and social care spending. Yeah. God help whoever wins the leadership on that one. So there's £36 billion ring fence from this 1.25% increase in national insurance contributions, which Liz Truss is going to scrap. So she's got to find the money from somewhere else. And now she's saying, well, this money, we're going to give it to social care. Now, you rightly say, Eamonn, for some time, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party have been saying we have to fix the problems with social care. But at the moment, it can't be fixed because the money has to go into the health service. She's saying, well, I'm going to give this money to local councils to sort out social care. That's being applauded. But at the same time, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. Mm-hmm. And you can't do both.
Was the national insurance increase hike, was it meant to plug the social service gap, or was it just going into health care?
It was meant to plug social care, but because of the pandemic, the then Health Secretary said, well, we'll stick a lot of this into the health service to begin with to get that right over the next few years. So, of course, now people are saying, well, if you just give this to local councils, this is the other problem, social care, you give this wedge of money to all the local councils, nothing is accounted for in the same way. It's not, it may well be ring-fenced by the government, but it could just vanish into a hole, which it so often does with spending in the health service Remember Gordon Brown that gave the biggest ever increase in NHS spending, and it didn't really seem to solve anything. It all gobbled up in wages, and this is a problem. It's a bottomless pit.
Social care should not be a council matter. It should be part of the NHS. You should get the same treatment from the NHS if you're 85 as if you're 25, and I can't see why there's this divide. It causes enormous problems. We've got people in ambulances outside hospitals for hours on end because they can't get into A&E, because A&E can't get people out of A&E into wards, because people on the wards can't go home or into a nursing home because there's underfunding and no spaces. It's terrible to treat elderly people as not as needy of the NHS as the rest of the population.
I mean, you raised something there, Liz, that seems so obvious. Why aren't they joined up?
Why aren't they joined up? But maybe Liz Truss could do something about that. You know, maybe she's thinking, as I do, that the real fundamental problem with the NHS is poor management, not a lack of money. And this week, well, with the A&E thing, as somebody I know that rang 111, you know, thinking I'll be responsible, I won't call an ambulance for advice, and waited about 3 hours before his call got answered. And I read this week that the call waiting times on 111 are 20 times longer than they should be. He eventually gave up. He was so fearful for his father, who'd had a fall, and he put him in his own car and took him, and then they were waiting for 8 hours or something in A&E. And the other story I heard from a friend this week was that she has got a problem with her hip, and a doctor referred her to a consultant. She expected to wait months, but no, like lightning, she found herself with a consultant, private, but paid for by the NHS. 2 days later, she was getting all these scans that she thought she'd have to wait for, but it was being done by a private hospital, paid for by the NHS. And now she's having an operation in no time at all. It's like, oh, can you be ready in 2 weeks? Crikey. And it's in a private hospital with a private consultant, but the NHS is paying. Now, people go, oh, but we shouldn't privatise the NHS. It is privatised. They can't cope, so they're paying profiteering organisations over the odds to carry out their work. And B, there doesn't seem to be a lack of funds to do that. It's just needs completely...
On this, if you are spending more money, where it might work, where there might be some benefits of this, if you spend more money on social care, elderly people in hospital can then be released into the community,
that's what I'm saying.
and the beds are being freed up for other people to be treated. So it might work for both in some way. But
if you think elderly care's been privatised because it's not done by the NHS, it's done by private nursing or care homes. It's just very disingenuous.
Well, from disingenuous to something that may put you off your breakfast completely. We've already talked about insects this morning.
Spiders.
But give us this story.
Yeah, so, David, this is in The Guardian, isn't it?
Yeah.
Insects could help give meat-like flavours to more food options.
Well, this is probably a help for the cost of living crisis, but...
Right, wait a minute. Just run that by me again. So, this would be food that is not meat-based, but it could taste like meat if you mashed up insects into it.
Yes, so it's mealworms. They've discovered at a university in Korea that if you add the sugar to them, then it can have meat-like flavourings, and they've done these experiments with them, and you can't tell the difference. And the advantage is it's got fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, fibre and protein. So it's as good as it is for meat. It's just the thought of eating insects. But in the future, with the animals adding to cows and so forth, adding to global warming, you then move on to eating these. It doesn't take as much space to produce them, and this is what we might all be eating in the year, say, 2050.
You're a healthy man, would you?
Probably not.
Probably not,
no.
OK.
But I mean, we may have to feed the world in 20 years, 30 years' time.
Liz, Gary Lineker, opinions being tied to a BBC contract. What's going on here?
Well, I think that there's a very delicate but serious balance to be determined by the BBC, which is our national public service broadcaster, between people who work there being able to speak out and have the benefits of freedom of speech, which you're supposed to have in this country, and being gagged because the BBC has to be unbiased and impartial. So, but the Gary Lineker thing, it's always been a bugbear of everybody who works there, including me, that he is allowed to voice his opinions in public, and especially on Twitter, on very political and party political subjects, and yet everybody else gets sinister calls from management or emails or, you know, a rap on the knuckles for doing the same. And I always used to say, I'd get a phone call and say, remove that tweet. And, you know, quite threatening. And I'd say, well, I'll stop tweeting when you stop Gary Lineker doing it.
Yeah.
It's one law for everybody. So there's that aspect to it. How does Gary Lineker get away with it? And now a senior manager in the BBC News division has spoken out and sent him Gary Lineker an email saying, if I did that under my terms and conditions of employment, I'd be sacked. Why aren't you? So it is an anomaly. I'd like to know why. Other people like Emily Maitlis, who had a rant on Newsnight about Dominic Cummings' trip to Barnard Castle, has left now because, and Andrew, what's it called, on Sunday mornings, they both left and said they wanted to be able to speak freely. And since the BBC retired me a few months ago, I've loved it. I can say what I want now without fear. But at the same time, when you work there and you know something's wrong and you want to speak out about it, like I did of Jimmy Savile, from the day he died, I was told to go on the air and do this big eulogy about him and I refused. Or when the Martin Bashir thing sprung up a few months ago and I tweeted, if anybody wants to know the true story of this, get in touch. And I got an email from BBC management saying, this is not helpful to the BBC. So there's a whole story about Martin Bashir, which I might be relating on the Dan Wootton show next week. But so it's that balance between keep your mouth shut, even though you know things are wrong, like the Diana interview or you know, Savile, or should you be able to speak freely? But
well, we're going to be debating this in about 25 minutes or so on the programme about what should you be allowed to say or what you shouldn't. We've got this guy who's got these hideous views about women, Ellie, and I mean, just prehistoric sort of views, influencing a lot of young people, but we will have someone on who will defend his right to do it. I know it's different than the BBC situation, but, you know, what should you be able to say? It's like, people, it's very, very strange where we are. It's completely confused, and is the BBC fit for purpose on this? And you get something like GB News, and people want, you know, their news, but they want the news that they agree with and like. They don't want any news that they. I mean, you can never say on this show, should Boris Johnson resign? Because you don't like that. You don't like that indication. That turns into Eamonn Holmes says Boris Johnson should resign, which is not. It's Eamonn Holmes asking someone a question: should he resign over this? But people just want the news that they want, the news that they like. It'd be like me looking at the football results and saying, I only want the results that suit me.
Well, I'm not talking about opinion, really. I'm talking about facts and whistleblowing and speaking the truth.
Well, what I'm trying to say is what people want from the BBC is no opinion, or what the BBC set up for is no opinion. It's impartiality, which I don't believe can exist.
Well, I do, because I used to present breakfast on my own on the radio, and I used to have to put a line through things that the people in the newsroom had written for me, because my mantra was, we are here to report the facts. And it was always...
Yes, but Liz, you will have come to a certain point in your career and you'll be covering a certain story and you will put your slant on it or your emphasis on it.
In this role,
not consciously.
No, not in this role. But when I stopped doing those programmes, and I did them from 94 to 2009, people said, the last day, the biggest compliment people paid to me was, Liz, which way do you vote? I mean, I think it's quite obvious here, But on the BBC, as a presenter of News and Current Affairs, who do you vote for, Liz? Because we've worked with you closely and we honestly don't know, and that's the biggest compliment.
Well, the way I don't vote for anybody, which is then I can never have anybody. David, what do you say about this?
I think impartiality is a goal which you can strive for, but it's unattainable. I think balance is something that is more within reach. That you express one opinion, say, on the other hand, there's this view. I think that's attainable, but impartiality is impossible. And these people who've all left the BBC, we've always suspected a lot of left-leaning BBC, and a lot of people who leave, you find out, oh gosh, there's a surprise. She's come out, or he's come out as a bit of a lefty, and well, yeah, we always suspected that. It's difficult for your views when you're interviewing a politician not to show through.
But would you ever have known what political party leanings Paxman had? I wouldn't.
No.
You wouldn't know. You just thought Paxman is just there to get the nub of this story and to get people to answer questions honestly. You would
where
never have said...
Where I don't agree with that approach is you can't have every politician, this is where we're at, you can't have every politician and your first question to them is basically, you, sir, are a liar. I don't believe a word that comes out of your mouth. And that attitude is wrong as well. Because there are a lot of very decent politicians, and we're in this situation whereby we are automatically programmed as interviewers, or there is this trend to follow people like Paxman and absolutely be cynical about absolutely everything.
No, I don't think he wasn't. I
think he sets the tone for people who are less skilled than him.
No, people now who admired him are trying to emulate him, and very badly. So they think that barracking people and bullying them is Paxman's style. It wasn't. What I thought was great last week about the GB News leadership debate in Manchester was that Alistair Stewart said quite openly, as his first, putting his goods in the shop window, I am not going to attack you, I'm not going to berate you. And he perfectly, to me, was a conduit to let the politicians speak and let the people ask the questions.
People decide. And the master of that was always David Frost, in my view. And you can get lots more from a trade union leader, from a politician, if you are pleasant and polite to them, sometimes even if you tickle their tummy. And they will say things that they wouldn't agree to under aggression.
Absolutely right. I mean, softly, softly catch a monkey.
My approach, my style was always, you remember Columbo, the detective?
Just one more thing.
I was like, I don't quite understand. And I thought it was great because you get people coming on, I was like, oh, she's a northern blonde bird, DJ, and thoroughly underestimate what I was doing. And so I'd just be really softly, and then they get cocky, and then just the killer question. You don't have to harangue people.
You can smile and turn the knife at the same time.
I was called the smiling assassin.
There you are. And she's smiling now, so we'll get offside. Thank you, Liz Kershaw, David Wooding. The guys are going to be back in 35 minutes' time.
After the break, as police urge Liverpool's gangs to turn in the killer of Olivia Pratt-Corbell, we'll ask a former gang member what could happen next. But first, here's your weather.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A wet start with some heavy rain expected in the southeast, sunny spells elsewhere, and those brighter conditions will work their way southeastwards, along with a fresher feel, certainly compared with how things felt in the southeast on Wednesday. That fresher air already into the north and the west arrives behind a cold front which will clear during the next few hours East Anglia and the southeast. But for a time, certainly some heavy and persistent wet weather for the likes of Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex into Kent, parts of London. By the afternoon, much of that's petering out, and brighter skies follow slowly but surely across central and eventually eastern parts of England. Those brighter skies will bring plenty of sunny spells for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and temperatures at around average. But it will be breezy to the northwest of Scotland, and that breeze will push a few showers into central and western Scotland, 1 or 2 for Northern Ireland, and then through the evening some more persistent rain arriving into western Scotland as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Cloudier here overnight, but elsewhere clear spells, 1 or 2 mist patches, but otherwise a fresh night to come. A more comfortable night for sleeping, 12 to 15 Celsius. However, we start off Friday with those outbreaks of showery rain into western and southwestern Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, and eventually western parts of England, as well as West Wales. The rain turns more to scattered showers in the south, but there'll be some heavy and prolonged downpours for southern Scotland and northwest England in particular, and a lot of cloud cover in a zone from central Scotland through to western England, as well as Wales. Either side of that, some sunny spells and temperatures at around average for the time of year, 24 Celsius in London, 18 to 22 generally elsewhere. Saturday and Sunday we'll see high pressure building in across the UK. There'll be some rain in the far northwest across western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it'll be drier elsewhere.
Tonight on GB News, at 6 it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The man believed to be the intended target of the shooting that killed Olivia Pratt-Corbell is arrested as police raid homes across Merseyside.
Hello there, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening from. It's just gone 8 o'clock. It's the 25th of August and you're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News with me, Eamonn, Holmes and Ellie Costello.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The man who's the target of a gangland shooting that led to the death of Olivia Pratt-Corbell has been named as Joseph Nee. The man is reportedly in a stable condition in hospital and has been arrested for further questioning as police continue to raid homes across Merseyside.
Students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland will receive their GCSE results this morning. First time the grades will be based on in-person exams since the start of the pandemic.
Boris Johnson has visited Ukraine for its Independence Day, telling the UK to endure the cost of living crisis and rising energy bills because Ukrainians are paying in their blood.
That comes ahead of an Ofgem announcement tomorrow of the new energy price cap, expected to be over £3,500 for the average household.
Well, how is that going to affect you? Do let us know. GB Views at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GB News.
Boris says, Ian says here that Boris Johnson says, suck it up. as Ukrainians don't have a choice. Perhaps we should make energy bills proportional to your income or wealth. Someone earning 25, or what was that? Is that 250? So many zeros there.
£25,000.
No, it's not. Is it? It is, you're right.
Yeah.
It is £25,000. Someone earning £25,000 spends or pays 10%, which would be £2,500 a year. And someone like the glorious Boris, who earns £250,000 per annum, plays £25,000 a month. Bet the suck it up mantra will soon be, let's try and solve this problem.
Yeah, Malcolm says, Johnson says we should take the pain. It's okay for him and his rich friends. But how are the poor going to manage this winter? It's going to be terrifying for millions. Many will die from the cold and related viruses. We'll do keep them coming in, and we're going to share as many as we can throughout the programme with you.
There's the GB News app. There's also GB News on YouTube. You can subscribe to that to get all the latest on these stories and more.
Back to our top story now, and a man believed to be the intended target of the shooting in Liverpool that killed 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbell has been identified as Joseph Nee.
He's 35 years of age. He's a convicted burglar and drug dealer. He's from Dovecot. He's understood to be in a stable condition after being injured in the shooting.
Well, Merseyside police have refused to publicly identify Nee, but say the man injured in the shooting would be recalled to prison for breaching the terms of his release.
But what are the chances of someone coming forward, and why is gang culture so rife in this country? I'm going to have a conversation now with a former gang member. He wasn't sure, he didn't even know he was a gang member. His name's Stephen Gowers, and he joins us now in the studio. He's turned his life around. And Stephen, that point that I was making, we talk about gangs there, and you were saying, while it obviously was a gang, when you were there, it didn't seem like that.
Well, we were kind of just a group of friends. We kind of had each other's backs, and we kind of just tried to make money outside the system and things like that. And if one of us had trouble, we all kind of stuck together, and things just escalated from there. We kind of, I started getting into groups because I was kind of frightened. I was getting bullied for a little while and stuff like that, and I sort of kind of seek solitude in a gang and protection, you know what I mean? Like strength in numbers and things like that. And then as you get older, your crimes escalated and things like that, you know. I think it's probably similar for everyone. And then in the end, you end up wasting your life and end up in
Stephen,
prison.
were guns involved? They could have been.
Well, they could have been. And I was shot at once while I was in a car with a few people. And I got stabbed twice, once in the leg, in my right leg once, and when I was cornered in a fight with a few of my friends, and I was laying on the floor trying to protect myself while someone was swinging an axe at me.
Dear God.
And I was...
Well, you know, I asked you, were guns involved? Were drugs involved as making money?
Yeah, but to be honest with you, there weren't real money because... You know, you couldn't really spend it. You couldn't, you know, like, we didn't have no way of, you know, legalised laundering it and things like that. So we kind of just used to live and spunk the money and basically, and then sometimes use it, get ourselves in debt, end up with a habit and things like that, you know. Yeah. It's not a life that I'd recommend to anyone.
No, but you see, the police are banking on the fact that someone will turn the gunman in this Liverpool case. How likely is that, do you think?
Well, me personally, I would never have. I would never talk. It's an oath that criminals take. I still wouldn't ever speak about. Even though I've changed my life about, I still wouldn't ever speak about things and name people and things like that. It's just something that morally I couldn't do, even though I've changed my mindset and I try to talk to people and try and get them away from that life. I still keep my silence from everything that's happened in my past. My past is my past.
Even if there was a 9-year-old girl involved?
Oh, I couldn't even comprehend that, to be honest with you. I'd probably end up committing suicide if that ever happened to me. I'll be honest with you, that would absolutely destroy me. Before I dobbed anyone in, I'd probably kill myself. If I ever felt that I'd ever hurt a child or any of my actions ever led.
But would you inform on someone if they were in your gang or your group, if they...
I'd probably want to kill them myself, if I'm honest with you. Like, at that time, obviously, I would never take anyone's life and things like that. But saying like that, that's absolutely disgraceful. And, I couldn't...
I was going to ask you about that because obviously we know that the intended victim of this shooting was Joseph Nee, who we've just been showing a photo of, but obviously instead it's been this 9-year-old little girl who's been killed. I mean, I was talking earlier about, do you think the killer would have some sort of conscience of what they've done? And do you think we'll actually just see the killer themselves
I think that's maybe going to be the thing that would happen. I don't think he'd be able to live with himself. He's probably sitting somewhere panicking, and he's probably contemplating taking his own life now. I don't think there's anyone in the world that would could ever live with herself after taking such a beautiful little girl. You know what I mean? It's really upsetting thinking about it.
What's the reaction to the fact, I think there's been 4 shootings in Merseyside in the past week, was it, Eamonn? 3 or 4? I mean, do you feel like the landscape has changed? Are you seeing it more now so than you did?
Yeah, it's a lot. That was my main motivation for me starting this campaign. That was the actual... The way, because when I was doing the thing, it weren't like this. It was...
your campaign is Take a
Knife, Save a Life.
Yeah,
basically, it's just try and stop kids killing each other.
Yeah.
And things like that. Because when I used to argue with... when I had my arguments with... I didn't hardly even know the people, so there was no personal thing in it. It's just basically postcode. Someone lives in this area, someone lives in that. One of my friends has argued with this person, and I'll take on their argument. It's all pathetic when you think about it, looking back in hindsight. And maybe with someone with my experiences, maybe I can pass on my wisdom and knowledge from making mistakes. You know, there's 2 ways of getting knowledge. One is by having it passed on. The other one's by making mistakes and learning from them. And, basically it's for my conscience why I carry it on. I started the campaign because I was sickened by the murder of Jodie Chesney, and it happened about 100 yards from my doorstep. And, you know, seeing all the vigils, all the stuff... and seeing the character of the girl playing the piano and what a beautiful soul she was, it inspired me to get up and do something and motivate my community to try and make a difference.
Well, keep on doing that and trying to make a difference, Stephen. Thanks very much for talking to us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Ofgem will announce tomorrow a new energy price cap, which could see bills reach more than £3,500 a year, more than 2.5 times what people paid on average in October 2021.
Now, all of this comes as pub owners warn that the energy crisis could lead to 7 in 10 of the establishments closing by the winter.
Well, for more on the energy price cap, we're joined now by consumer champion at How to Save It, Will Hodgson, and we're also joined down the line by Mike Graham, who owns the Railway Pub in South Woodham Ferrers in Essex. Good morning to you, Will, and good morning to you, Mike. But, Will, let's start with you first. So just outline what we're expecting to happen tomorrow with the energy price cap.
So what we're expecting to happen is there's going to be an announcement that the price cap is going to rise from where we are now, just under £2,000, up to about £3,600.
Right, and that's obviously going to have a huge impact on so many people up and down the country, especially pubs, and that's where I'm going to bring in Mike. Mike, good morning to you. I mean, the line that we're hearing here this morning is 7 in 10 pubs could shut for good this winter because of rising energy costs. I mean, how much have your energy bills gone up by?
Yeah, so my energy bills have increased. You know, funny enough, I just came out of contract on my electric bill last month, beginning of July, and it went from about £1,800 a month to £3,600 and something. So, yeah, a massive increase.
And how are you doing as a pub? I mean, is this something that's going to affect you? I mean, would you be at risk of closing?
So, for me personally, I mean, I wouldn't be at risk of closing, but obviously it would become more strenuous. You know, when you start out in business, any fundamental to these types of businesses, that they'll tell you, because it's a standstill business and obviously it relies on the use of them kind of utilities in order to attract custom in. If you've got TVs going, you're cooking food, whatever you're doing. Yeah, I mean, the reality of it is, you need to get your energy consumption down in order to bring your break even to a relative point to open the doors and make money. I mean, if you can't do that from the start, for a lot of places, I could understand if you're not busy enough and you're trying to attract custom, what would be the point of opening your doors in the first place?
The entertainment industry very badly hit, Mike, since the pandemic, and as a result of the pandemic. We had a fish and chip shop owner on the programme this week who was talking about energy costs and how they're absolutely crippling him. The problem, I suppose, Mike, for people like yourself is, unlike a domestic bill where you have a fire on, you're heating your bedroom or whatever, that they see you as making money in all of this. But the reality is you're not making money, are you?
No, ultimately, I mean, no, you wouldn't be. It's, I mean, there's a lot more, look, don't get me wrong, there's a lot more than just energy costs to a business to why you would and wouldn't make money. But like I say, that lays the major foundations. It's a major part of them foundations to making it realistic in order to make money.
You've actually worked really hard in your pub, haven't you, to have lots of income streams. I've visited the pub a couple of times for various interviews for GB News, and you've had to come up with other ways to make money aside from just selling pints.
Oh, yeah, massively. I mean, we do lots of different stuff here. You know, anything from events all the way around to I sell fresh fish twice a week, from the front. The biggest thing, and I think there's two ways to look at this. You can either look at the consumer market, the customers, or you can look at the entity as itself. But ultimately, the effects it's a vicious circle at the end of the day, even from a supplier's point of view. If things increase, it means prices have to increase. That's completely across the board, which then affects customers. And the bottom line is you still have to offer the same service. But if people don't have the same money to come out and spend because their bills are higher, or if suppliers hike prices because it costs them more to develop and make things, the bottom line is, as a public-facing business, you're the bottom of the chain. So you're there, the one facing the custom and the public, and you're gonna, I suppose, you're gonna be the people that consume that real sort of cost of living deficit to the business as such.
Nobody's got anything, it appears, Mike. Look, good luck to you. Hope you stay in business. Hope everything's okay. Mike Graham, he's the owner of the Railway in Southend-on-Sea. Thanks for talking to us today, Mike. We go back to Will Hodson, the consumer champion here in the studio, how to save it. And I suppose you give out all these domestic tips, Will, and you talk to people about how they can make a difference. But we're now realising this trickles through to the commercial sector as well.
That's right. I mean, we're all in the same boat. And fundamentally where we are is in a state of complete reliance on very, very expensive gas. And that applies at a national level, where we've got it in our fuel mix. And it also applies, in our homes, in our businesses, where we're using so much of it. Now, the truth is that we as consumers, as business owners, we can't do much about the national fuel mix. All we can do now is try to use as little energy as possible, which is why order of the day for this winter is going to be energy efficiency wherever you can find it.
And that's what Mike was saying, wasn't he? I mean, ultimately, you just have to bring down your use of energy. Well, I want to share with you the front page of the Mirror this morning. It says the whole country speaks with one voice. We're ignored. Freeze our bills now. This is obviously a call as well from the Lib Dem and Labour Party to freeze this energy price cap. I mean, can that be done? Is that something that could happen?
It can be done, and something has to happen. Right? There's been a complete vacuum where there should be leadership and policy because we've got a Tory party leadership contest going on. And in that vacuum, you've seen policies from Labour, policies from Gordon Brown, a former Prime Minister. We're also seeing Scottish Power, British Gas today announcing they're giving 10% of their profits to help their most vulnerable customers. So we are going to see something. And there is some debate. The concept to keep in your head is, do we want to target help at the people who need it the most? Or do we want to go universal and give it to everyone? And
what would you say, Will? What would you say?
Well, do you know what, Eamonn? When you say freeze the price cap, that sounds great, right? But actually, you're freezing the price cap for someone who pays £10,000 a year. Yeah. They're raking in the cash every month. They work in finance. They don't really need the help. But if you freeze the price cap, you're basically paying half their bill. So you're giving that person £5,000 he doesn't really need. Yeah. Meanwhile, someone's paying £4,000 a year. They're really struggling. They get £2,000. So that's where universalism seems to be what makes sense, but actually when you look at the numbers, you're not really getting the help to the people who need it the most.
So you're in favour of targeting?
I think we've started targeting already, and I think we should double down on it.
OK. Depressing stuff, but Will, thanks very much indeed for your take and your advice and your overview of things. Will Hodson's a consumer champion. How to save it is his philosophy. Thank you very much indeed. And it really has to get everybody thinking about how we actually save it, you know, and all the things that everybody said, you know, you're going to sit in your own home wearing a jumper, wearing a coat or whatever it is, but that's exactly what you will have to do, or you pay the bill.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff's been in touch, so this puts it all into perspective. He said, good morning, I'm a pensioner on state pension only. If this rise goes ahead tomorrow, it's half of my yearly income.
70 minutes now past 8 o'clock. Here's what's happening news-wise. Albanian police could be brought into Britain to oversee migrant arrivals and pass on intelligence in a bid to tackle channel crossings.
The Home Office says the plan is part of a deal struck between Home Secretary Priti Patel and the Albanian government.
The government's been urged to raise the energy bill discount by at least 150% or risk pushing millions into financial distress. The consumer watchdog Which says the existing support package is inadequate following the latest energy price cap predictions.
Drivers planning bank holiday getaways on Friday afternoon are being warned they could face severe delays. The breakdown rescue company, the RAC, predicts tomorrow will be the busiest day for getaway trips, with the worst tailbacks likely to be between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Well, Ken's been in touch on that story. He says surely people will not get in their cars and set off for the weekend when they know they're going to be sitting in lines of traffic and spending stupid money on petrol only to go away for 2 days. They cannot be short of money or stupidity, says Ken.
Well, GCSE results today for England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Most expected to find out their grades at around 10 o'clock this morning. So we're talking about students who are about 16 years of age.
Yes, but they've been told to prepare for disappointment with a drop in top marks expected this year.
The charity, the NSPCC, says the number of children seeking counselling for exam stress has reached record levels. Let's go to Jeff Moody, our reporter, with more on this.
COVID, lockdowns, the war in Ukraine, the climate crisis. It's no surprise that Childline is reporting a 30% rise in children seeking counselling.
Well, last year, Childline delivered over 73,000 counselling sessions to children around mental health and wellbeing. And we know that the pandemic hit children really hard. They were out of school, some were in households where they didn't feel safe. For some, school was that place of safety. There weren't services looking out for them. And for some, it was a really difficult time.
The difficult times didn't end after lockdown. For many, they were just beginning.
Children are concerned about environmental issues. They're concerned about the state of the world. Yes, Ukraine. They're also worried about, when we're thinking about exams, they're worried about what the future might hold for them. Are they going to get a job? They're worried about the cost of living crisis and what that means for their family. But they're also impacted by things like social media, what they see there, body image. There's a whole range of things that can really impact on children's mental health and well-being.
And now, news that the number of GCSE grades marked 7 or above is set to fall by 230,000 this year as the government attempts to combat grade inflation. Childline, backed by the NSPCC, is urging children not to stress. There are plenty of choices out there, even if their grades don't pass muster.
There is also the opportunity to take resits. There's also the opportunity to talk to people outside of education, like Childline counsellors, to talk about, OK, well, what worked well for you? What are you good at? So not just seeing a number on a sheet, but actually thinking, OK, I was good at that bit, wasn't quite so good at that bit. What can I now focus on?
Plenty to focus on for the future. The focus today, those little slips of paper. Jeff Moody, GB News.
We're now going to Northern Ireland, Saintfield High School there as students prepare to find the results that they're going to get. This is on the outskirts of Belfast. Let's go to our Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie, for this. Dougie.
Saintfield High School in County Down. This school is particularly successful. And joining me now is Sarah Lucy Hines, the principal. Sarah, what does this mean today? I mean, what are these? It's a day that happens many times, but in particular this year?
Good morning. This is a very unique year. We have to remember that children receiving their GCSE results today will have actually completed all of their courses during the last 2 years, and they have experienced disruption for the entirety of their courses, as with the Key Stage 5 results last year. So this is a very, very unique results day for everyone across the country.
And what does it mean for the education system in Northern Ireland in total? I mean, how do you see that pushing forward in the future with people like this getting this in university places now at a premium?
I mean, I think these are all very interesting questions. I think that with this results day, with the last 2 years being teacher assessed grades, this is some way with the examinations last year of trying to bring things back in line, trying to sort of, I suppose, get some normality back as it was pre-COVID in terms of children's assessments. But we must remember, I mean, we are delighted to welcome the children in today to receive their GCSE results, but we have to remember this is just a bit of a blunt tool with which to measure children's success, as always.
This school in particular, the children here have to go on to other grammar schools because it hasn't got an upper sixth or a sixth year. I mean, is there enough places sitting out there for these children now?
I mean, I think so. I mean, it's always a sad day as well for us that we cannot retain the children for a sixth form here. But all we can do is prepare them for the Key Stage 5 journey that they go into, and the world of work and other courses that our children will go on to, and the opportunities that they deserve.
Well, there you have it. These doors will open up in about 5 to 10 minutes' time, and my daughter, the youngest one, will be in amongst them looking for those results.
Well, good luck to her, Dougie. I hope it all goes well. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, coming up, as influencer Andrew Tate is banned from major social media platforms after being branded a threat to young men, we'll ask if there are limits when it comes to free speech. But
although he was branded a threat to young men, he was branded a threat because he was influencing them. He was attacking women. He was attacking everything. He just hadn't got anything nice or good to say about women, had he?
Openly misogynist. He says women should be in the kitchen, women should have fewer rights.
Can't drive cars, all the usual old stereotype type things. OK, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be debating that right after your weather outlook.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn McGivern from the Met Office. A wet start with some heavy rain expected in the southeast, sunny spells elsewhere, and those brighter conditions will work their way southeastwards, along with a fresher feel, certainly compared with how things felt in the southeast on Wednesday. That fresher air already into the north and the west arrives behind a cold front which will clear during the next few hours East Anglia and the southeast. But for a time, certainly some heavy and persistent wet weather for the likes of Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex into Kent, parts of London. By the afternoon, much of that's petering out, and brighter skies follow slowly but surely across central and eventually eastern parts of England. Those brighter skies will bring plenty of sunny spells for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and temperatures at around average. But it will be breezy to the northwest of Scotland, and that breeze will push a few showers into central and western Scotland, 1 or 2 for Northern Ireland, and then through the evening some more persistent rain arriving into western Scotland as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Cloudier here overnight, but elsewhere clear spells, 1 or 2 mist patches, but otherwise a fresh night to come. A more comfortable night for sleeping, 12 to 15 Celsius. However, we start off Friday with those outbreaks of showery rain into western and southwestern Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland and eventually western parts of England as well as West Wales. The rain turns more to scattered showers in the south, but there'll be some heavy and prolonged downpours for southern Scotland and northwest England in particular, and a lot of cloud cover in a zone from central Scotland through to western England as well as Wales. Either side of that, some sunny spells and temperatures at around average for the time of year, 24 Celsius in London, 18 to 22 generally elsewhere. Saturday and Sunday we'll see high pressure building in across the UK. There'll be some rain in the far northwest across western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it'll be drier elsewhere.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning to you. It's just gone 28 minutes past 8. And right now we're going to be talking about free speech and social media. And we are asking, should social media companies be allowed to limit free speech? Now, this question comes as ex-Big Brother contestant turned influencer Andrew Tate. You may have heard of him. He's been banned now from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok and YouTube for violating the platform's hate speech policies. Now, he was previously banned from Twitter in 2017 after he tweeted that women should bear some responsibility for being sexually assaulted, and he's been accused of radicalising men and boys to commit harm offline.
Well, even with seemingly extreme views, should his right to say such things, however distasteful, be policed? Well, let's speak to an educator on gender-based violence. So we say good morning to Nalim Hira. And also here in the studio, we've got the deputy editor of Spiked, and that's Fraser Myers. Good morning to you both. Good to see you. First of all, hello, Neelam. First of all, Fraser, could I ask you, who the heck is Andrew Tate? Never heard of him. Who is he? Why should we be worried about him?
So he's the most famous person in the world that you've never heard of. He's currently the most Googled man on the internet. More people are Googling Andrew Tate's name than Donald Trump and Kim Kardashian combined. Until he was banned from across social media, he was racking up billions of views. So 12 billion people, or 12 billion views, I believe he racked up on TikTok.
And this is all because he's detrimental and he slags off women. This is the attraction.
I think that's part of it. I think he would say that he's being funny. I think that he's being outrageous as well. You know, there's a provocation there, so there's a bit of frisson that people get from watching someone say something that you're obviously not allowed to say. Detrimental things about women. He spreads conspiracy theories as well. He thinks we live in a new world order. The pandemic was faked, etc., etc. You know, the government's tracking you, all that kind of stuff too. So there's no question that he does have extreme views. But the real thing we need to be asking is, are we okay with essentially all of the big tech firms pretty much brutally, swiftly, within short succession of each other, each banning him? You know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
OK, we get that. Neelam, I suppose it depends what influence he has and how seriously you take him. What's your take on this?
So over the last few months, this has been a conversation within the school playgrounds and some of the work that we do in schools around gender-based violence. So this isn't new for us. We've heard Andrew Tate's name for a couple of months now and a bit longer. And what we're seeing is particularly young boys really standing in solidarity around this topic and having a couple of his clips and referring to them as correct and right and almost knowing what he says word for word. And the pictures that you're displaying now are pictures that these children hold very dear to them, because they see the words that he's saying, they hear what he's got to say, but then they also see this millionaire lifestyle alongside that. So they see success, they see wealth, and they see women then as the problem or the barrier for them to get that. And they put these two connections together, and then they believe that that is how they need to sort of progress and go forward in life. And it all equates to gender-based violence and that hierarchy of violence as well.
Neelam, I wanted to bring you in now a viewer who's been in touch with us. This is Joan. She says, in our house, my husband prefers to be in the kitchen. She is banned totally. She says, Andrew Tate's comments are crass, but it should be allowed to be said without anyone being insulted. It's a ridiculous world that we live in. So what would you say to that, Neelam? So Joan's saying,
well, what I
would
say to that, anybody that's coming out, any man that's coming out and saying women are stupid, women can't drive, women should be in the kitchen, whatever, should be banned, because it's not so much what's coming out of his mouth or what certain people accept. But Neelam and Fraser, I suppose what I'm saying is there are kids who are going to believe this, and then they're going to practice this, and then it leads to domestic violence and all sorts of horribleness. Yes. Neelam.
So what we're seeing in classrooms is exactly that. We're seeing children at a younger age almost say, well, girls are supposed to be doing these subjects. They're supposed to be doing things around cooking. They don't have to do things like PE because they can't go into sports. We're seeing that happen at a younger age now, and that gender divide, because there's a belief that girls do certain jobs, girls have a certain place. We have had young boys say to us around, when we're talking about things like sex education, that they don't want to be with anyone that's not a virgin because Andrew Tate says they're the type of women that you should be going with. So you're seeing this permeate through into very young teenagers at this point. So that's the bit that we're quite scared about. And the conversation is much bigger than Andrew Tate at this point. This conversation, we can't be satisfied with just Andrew Tate being deplatformed, because it's not really a point about free speech at this point. It's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok isn't a public forum. That's the public square in the middle of London. We do have an opportunity here to really curb some of this behaviour, online behaviour that we're seeing that is dangerous. We're seeing a rise of online misogyny. We're seeing a rise of, online hate directed to marginalised communities.
So Fraser's not argument enough to ban him?
I think far more dangerous than anything Andrew Tate has said, and let's agree that his views are moronic, some of them are monstrous, but far more dangerous than that is the creeping rise of censorship. And this censorship is being done by large companies who have no accountability to us, mostly in California, in the case of TikTok in Beijing. They are deciding what is acceptable for us to say and think, and that is a problem. And when you're talking about free speech, of course, it's always the outrageous cases you're talking about. No one is arguing about the free speech of our right to say flowers are pretty and don't we all like pets. It's always about the hard cases. And what you realise is that when you give up your power to speak freely, when you say it's acceptable for the tech firms to censor things, one day they'll censor Andrew Tate and we'll say, oh well, we didn't agree with him, he was nasty. And the next they're censoring a gender-critical feminist. The next day they're censoring someone that we might agree with or who might have a point.
Is there ever a line? I mean, Andrew Tate is being accused of radicalising men and boys to commit sexual offences offline. I mean, at that point when it is actually a danger to young girls and young women, is that not a limit for you?
I think this is a slightly over-the-top claim. I'm sure, I don't doubt for a second that lots of young boys are repeating the kind of stuff that they hear from Andrew Tate. I'm sure there was a similar panic a couple of years ago with Dapper Laughs. There have been various pickup artists over the years that have emerged from the kind of dark recesses of the web that have become famous, and people repeat their lines and we all get worried about it. There can be problems here, and it's the role of schools, it's the role of parents to, put young boys right, to say that this is not how you talk about women, this is not how you treat women. But, censoring these voices online is just not going to help. We shouldn't imagine that it's going to ruin the lives of young children just to see these Andrew Tate clips, whether that's boys or girls.
Neelam, do you think it's an overreaction? Do you think this is censorship?
No, not at all. I think deplatforming someone of this nature is something that's needed. We should have seen it happen a while ago. If you're looking at the claims that Andrew's making and then looking at his lifestyle, we're seeing the young boys want to achieve that lifestyle. We know that the number one killer of young men in this country is by suicide. So we can see a pattern here, people trying to live up to this standard and not getting it. And Andrew Tate goes into these places where these people are vulnerable under the guise of we're trying to help you, it's self-help, it's money, it's wealth. But that ultimately comes down to the fault of women within these spaces. And that's the bit where it's dangerous. This is a wider conversation of systemic oppression of women anyway. But what we say here, there is no differentiation. You can't separate online misogyny from offline crimes. We're seeing a rise in both, and there is a direct correlation there. So there is something that tech giants should be doing, and they have, in my opinion, done the right thing here.
Okay,
for us,
Neelam.
because we've been hearing this for quite a few months, it should have happened sooner.
At the end of the day, what do you think watching and listening at home? Let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can tweet at gbnews. Neelam Hira, thank you very much indeed. She's in favour of a social media ban on people like Andrew Tate. And we've got Fraser Myers who's saying here, however distasteful, he should still have platforms. He should still have the right to say what he thinks, no matter what we think. Guys, thank you very much indeed. We'll go to the break. David Wooding, Liz Kershaw, they've got the papers right after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Time to go through the papers now. We do that in the company of political journalist David Wooding and the broadcaster Liz Kershaw.
Good morning to you both. Liz, let's start with you. This is a story in the Mail this morning. Parents on their phone too much is risking their kids' communication skills. Tell us a bit more about this.
A survey found that 46% of mums and dads were addicted to their smartphones, and so the study is about parents who, instead of talking to their children or playing with their children, are sitting there.
But I would have assumed the kids are more addicted to their smartphones than the parents are. I mean, isn't one just as bad as the other?
Well, this is talking about children aged 5 to 19.
Yeah,
so
right.
the older teenagers, 13 to 17, do a lot of screen time. It admits that. But I saw, yesterday I was in Branch of Marks and Spencer's in the children's department, And I was only in there because you can get size 5 shoes, but they're cheaper because they don't have VAT on children's shoes. But they...
You're size 5 then?
Well, and there I am, yeah. So they're
very
great.
good.
Anyway, I was there, and they've got this tray, the play area, like, Lego type stuff. And there was this kid, and she's about 4, playing with all this stuff, and she's going, "Mummy, look at this." And she was just talking to herself. She was just giving a running commentary on what she was... And I was waiting for my friend then, and I just watched this. And the mother was sitting on a stool on her smartphone, never once spoke to the child or acknowledged her. It was quite
the mother's
heartbreaking.
bored silly, isn't she? She hears all that. Mummy, isn't this all day? You're like, oh, shut up.
It's hard work, but yeah, you've got to do it. But anyway, and also people who give their kids gadgets rather than interact with them. When I went on my holiday recently on a cruise, there was a family, and as soon as they sat down at the dinner table, they gave the 2 or 3-year-old a tablet and headphones, and that was it. And he sat there playing on that in his own world, and they just put like chicken nuggets in front of him. I mean, a family meal time is a time when you should
Sounds
be...
bliss to me.
Oh, you don't mean it.
I wonder whether some of these youngsters are going to have eyesight problems as they get older, because they're spending a lot of time. It's not just looking at the screen, which is bright, it's the fact that the muscles in the eye is at the same level all the time.
Or they'll think that, Percy Pig or something, Peppa Pig is their dad or something. I don't know. I remember when I used to watch telly all the time, we're the same age, watching like Batman on the telly and Bewitched and stuff like that. And they used to say to me, you're addicted to the telly, you just...
Your eyes are going square.
Yeah, you'll go square, you won't do well in life, and all the rest of it. And... don't think it did me any harm.
It is amazing watching kids, though, like their fluency with technology as well. I mean, they would know if you're taking a picture. They know what an iPhone is, and they'd be able to pose for a picture. And also the ability for even toddlers to pick up tablets and get in and put in a passcode. I mean, like I was saying, David,
my granddaughter absolutely freaks me out. She's 1 year old, right? 1 year old. Someone lifts a phone.
She knows.
She knows. Her head goes, and I think, how freaky is that?
Yeah. And I'm convinced dogs know as well.
Are you?
Yeah, my dog's 1 year old as well, same age. And she'd smile for a camera. She knows what a camera is as well. So I think we're all being changed by smartphones.
The next story will be about doggies not going for walkies because mum and dad are too busy on the iPhone.
But I was reading a study last night, Liz, based on this article, and it was saying that Danish parents are the most engaged. The way that their culture is when you're with your kids, you're very much focused and the phones are away. And that's why
a bit of discipline. I suppose about a bit of discipline. The message is, if you are a parent, get off your phone if you want to do better at your parenting. Okay, we go to the Sun, and David, this is your story here is families are so hard up. Well, their kids are losing out on brushing their teeth or washing or...
It's another cost of living story, but we've heard of fuel poverty where people can't afford to heat their homes properly. What this is about is what's being called hygiene poverty, because a survey of teachers found that 97% say that some of the children in their school are not washed properly and can't have the basics such as shower gel or deodorants and things, and toothpaste. So I think there's always been a small number of kids who've been turning into school a bit scruffy and not washed properly and so forth. You always get those. But the fact that there's 97% of teachers show that perhaps some people are struggling a little bit more.
Stark, isn't it? 97%.
Can I just say, because I bang on about VAT.
Yeah.
Just did on shoes and foods, different foods we've talked about before.
It's another ghastly tax.
It's a tax on, there's VAT on all toiletries, from toilet rolls.
What does it even mean, value-added tax? What's value-added?
It's a tax. They know that these are, with certain food items, you could take them or leave them, but they're not luxury items, are they? Toothpaste and toilet paper and tampons.
Or shoes that you were talking about there.
Well, the ones I'd worked out necessarily, they had sequins on. But I've been saying for years, they should not be taxing people on keeping the mouth healthy or the bottom clean or whatever.
And it will be interesting to see how supermarkets we were talking to the boss of Iceland a couple of days ago now, and I mean, supermarkets are going to have to come up with ways to make it more accessible, which is awful, really. But already we're seeing supermarkets come out with these essential ranges. Maybe we'll see something like that with toiletries as well, just to allow people to be able to afford basic hygiene.
My mother always had this saying that soap and water doesn't cost much, is what she would used to say. And what I'd say is, I can remember distinctly, I had 42 people in my class in primary school, and there were a proportion of smelly ones. There were ones who, you know, I can't even name them like I identify them, but it was obvious they smelled of wee, pee, poo, goodness knows what, but hygiene was not very high up the list of their parents' priorities, whether that was an affordability issue or whether it was a lack of education from the parents. But I just go back to what Josie says, which is soap and water doesn't cost much, or it shouldn't cost much anyway. Right, tell us about the red arrows. We touched upon this yesterday. The thing is, how can the red arrows be sexist when there's no women in the red arrows anyway? Is that being sexist in itself?
Well, it's stood on, I think there's no bar to a woman becoming a Red Arrow pilot. I kind of think it takes a different kind of physical and mental agility.
I couldn't do it.
It's absolutely astounding what they do. Anyway, my experience, I just thought, I know you discussed it, and now the Red Arrows is down to 7 rather than 9 planes because people have resigned and there's all this argy-bargy. And the Red Arrows, there's supposed to be endemic sexism and all this. And I just thought I'd share my experience. So I went to a party in Bristol, that of a well-known TV female personality.
All right.
Yeah.
I know who that is straight away.
And so we're at a party, there's a marquee, we're all partying around the pool, you know.
And she's a pilot too.
Yeah. Don't identify it.
Oh, right, okay, right.
Anyway, so but just before the party started, there was the annual balloon festival over the Clifton Suspension Bridge.
Right.
So we all stood in the grounds and watched the balloons, and then we saw the Red Arrows fly over. It's all like, ooh, imagine my surprise when a couple of hours later, just as darkness had fallen, the big gates open, and in walk, it's like a Top Gun trail, in walk 9 guys in their orange or red boiler suits.
Yes.
I was like, hang on, that's the Red Arrows. She was a close personal friend of one of them. But the way, so I'm just saying there's always a balance here. The way that they would fly, the women zoomed in, and these guys didn't have to go out and be macho or aggressively sexual.
They were like magnets, were they?
And the other thing to consider is the guy that I was talking to, and I was talking to him about being a pilot because my first proper boyfriend had been a jet pilot in the RAF. So we're just talking about that. I got really well with him. A week later, he was killed.
Oh, dear,
and you just realise the pressure and the way they're living on the edge. So if they want to go out, and I'm not endorsing, exploitation or violence or excess sexism, but I'm just saying you've got to have a certain aggression and mindset and confidence and maybe arrogance to do that job. And that's all I would say in their defence.
OK. Quick word, David, about sleeping. This is in the Daily Mail. Another indication of why sleep is so important.
Yes. This study shows that young people, we're always, when the teenagers, trying to drag them out of bed early, and they're not getting up and in bed till the last minute before school time. I remember it well. But they found that if they don't get the 8 hours sleep, they're 19% more likely to be obese or have health problems in later life. In fact, 29% more likely than those who do get 8 hours sleep. So perhaps that's a little excuse for the lazy, heavy the teenager.
Important to get the sleep
Mum, I
in.
need my 8 hours.
David Wooding, Liz Kershaw, you've been fantastic this morning. Thank you so much for your time. OK, you'll know him best as baddie Archie Mitchell in EastEnders and lovable dad Mick in Gavin and Stacey. But now actor Larry Lamb is starring in a new Brit flick named Hounded.
Pegged as the British Squid Game, it'll be screened tomorrow at this year's Fright Fest, the UK's largest horror and thriller film festival. Here's a little preview.
Aristocracy. They fear what they don't understand. Is that for me, Charlie?
It's Chaz.
Ooh. Ottoman warriors. Mid-18th century. Outstanding. I do have more work I could put your way.
Not interested.
Are you sure?
What's the gig?
This is easy money.
We're done.
Larry, good to see you. So this is part of the Fright Fest festival. Is it a scary one?
I've not seen the film yet. Hopefully it's going to be scary if it's in the Fright Fest. It's certainly getting a lot of following and a lot of publicity. But yeah, it's and interesting to see. I'm billed as the star of it. I have a nice part in it, but I'm certainly not the star of the movie.
So, Larry, tell us about the film then. What's it about and what's your part in it?
This is always the problem when you start to tell about things that go on in the movie. I don't want to give the game away, otherwise there's no point people going. It's a heist movie that's all focused around a bunch of South London gangster robbers. And shall we say it goes very, very seriously wrong. I'm kind of outside the realm of the actual action. I'm a middleman in there. But I can't say too much about it because there's no point going to see the film if you
Larry,
you're all about that.
Larry, you're
Because
different than me.
It all turns on the fact that it goes what's supposed to happen goes wrong.
You see, I don't buy into that. You're different than me. You're one of these people then that doesn't watch trailers for movies. I love watching trailers.
Yeah,
My wife goes ballistic. What are you watching the trailer for? Now you know all about it. It's like I can know the result of a football match, but still watch the recorded highlights. So that doesn't worry me. What about you?
No, I'm the same. I love a trailer. I like to know exactly what's coming. But Larry, I think you did a good job there of explaining it.
Beg your pardon?
I think you did a good job there of explaining it. I want to know, though, are you a goodie or a baddie in this film? Because you've played both in your career, haven't you?
Yeah. If I tell you that, that's sort of like...
Okay.
So mysterious.
Well, let's talk about what we can talk about. We know you were a baddie, one of the bad baddies of soaps of all time, Archie Mitchell in EastEnders. And yet... And Gavin and Stacey, everybody, you mentioned Larry Lamb and you mentioned Mick Shipman there, and the people go, oh, he's lovely.
We love him. Lovable dad.
No, it's so confusing. When I was playing them, it was really confusing because I kept having to think, hang on a minute, who am I? I mean, you can only go so far. You're sitting in one set of clothes and you're doing a scene that maybe sort of vaguely similar, but you're supposed to be the other character, yeah. And I was very fortunate in that I got to do both of those side by side. So
and it's a test.
They're both extraordinary characters, and very lucky to get a chance to play them, and especially if you get the chance to do them at the same time. God, look, he's getting a bit excited there, the old boy.
Well, look, Archie Mitchell was killed off, so there's no chance you playing him again. But Mick Shipman, it's another thing. And Corden, we hear he's coming back to live in England again.
Well, so they say. I mean, the thing is, he's a man around the world now, James, so I don't know where he's going to be.
Are we going to be expecting a fourth series of Gavin and Stacey? We saw pictures of you filming on a beach in Barry Island, didn't we?
Yeah, but that was Alison and I doing a programme about genealogy. That wasn't anything to do. We just went to Barry Island, which caused a bit of a stir, I tell you, when the two of us rocked up there in the afternoon, a sunny afternoon at the beach. And
I was about to say.
Got quite out of hand.
Yeah, it excites so many people, doesn't it? And, I mean, the public reception to you must be incredible, with the Mick Shipman role especially. I mean, do you find people coming up to you just full of so much warmth for you?
I mean, that's it, exactly. People just talk to you as if you know, you're that person in their life, and they literally just say, "Hello, how are you?" And you know, "I'm fine, I'm great. How are you? Like the dress?" And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a joy. You know, you're a part of people's lives, and you know, they as you said, they just love you.
Well, we love you too, and thanks for being part of our programme this morning, Larry. His latest film, Hounded, we can tell you it's part of the Fright Fest, which is happening soon, and then it'll be available from November, digitally released for that. Thank you, Larry. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Thank you very much indeed. All the best to you as well. Thank you very much. Right, we're going to take a break there. After that, we're going to be speaking to a schools minister. The students are told to prepare for disappointment when they open those GCSE results today.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A wet start with some heavy rain expected in the southeast, sunny spells elsewhere, and those brighter conditions will work their way southeastwards, along with a fresher feel, certainly compared with how things felt in the southeast on Wednesday. That fresher air already into the north and the west arrives behind a cold front which will clear during the next few hours East Anglia and the southeast. But for a time, certainly some heavy and persistent wet weather for the likes of Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex into Kent, parts of London. By the afternoon, much of that's petering out, and brighter skies follow slowly but surely across central and eventually eastern parts of England. Those brighter skies will bring plenty of sunny spells for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and temperatures at around average. But it will be breezy to the northwest of Scotland, and that breeze will push a few showers into central and western Scotland, 1 or 2 for Northern Ireland, and then through the evening some more persistent rain arriving into western Scotland as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Cloudier here overnight, but elsewhere clear spells, 1 or 2 mist patches, but otherwise a fresh night to come. A more comfortable night for sleeping, 12 to 15 Celsius. But however, we start off Friday with those outbreaks of showery rain into western and southwestern Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland and eventually western parts of England as well as West Wales. The rain turns more to scattered showers in the south, but there'll be some heavy and prolonged downpours for southern Scotland and northwest England in particular, and a lot of cloud cover in a zone from central Scotland through to western England as well as Wales. Either side of that, some sunny spells and temperatures at around average for the time of year, 24 Celsius in London, 18 to 22 generally elsewhere. Saturday and Sunday we'll see high pressure building in across the UK. There'll be some rain in the far northwest across western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it'll be drier elsewhere.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The man believed to be the intended target of the shooting that killed Olivia Pratt-Coble is arrested.
Hello there, just after 9 o'clock. It's the 25th of August, it's a Thursday. This is Breakfast in GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Ellie Costello. And here's what's leading our news on this Thursday morning.
The man who was the target of a gangland shooting that led to the death of Olivia Pratt-Coble has been named as Joseph Nee. The man is reportedly in a stable condition in hospital and has been arrested for further questioning as police continue to raid homes across Merseyside.
And students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland are receiving their GCSE results today. It's the first time the grades will be based on in-person exams since the start of the pandemic.
Boris Johnson has visited Ukraine for its Independence Day, telling the UK to endure the cost of living crisis and rising energy bills because Ukrainians have been paying in their blood.
It comes ahead of an Ofgem announcement of the new energy price cap. That'll come in tomorrow. It's expected to be over £3,500 for the average household.
And remember, you can join in on any of our discussions today by emailing gbnews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews. Lots of you have been doing so. We're talking about, obviously, the rising price cap. Paul says a price cap costs the taxpayer nothing. It only affects the energy company's profit. Please make this point, or you are also in the pay of the big companies. So Paul's saying this should come out of the profits rather than seeing the energy price cap go up.
Yeah, we were talking about this guy, Andrew Tate, who is apparently is quite famous for just being derogatory about women. And Rachel says, don't call him a men's rights activist. Men's rights are about equality with women. Equality as fathers, equality in the workplace, teaching, human resources, nursing. We still have nannies, matron and sister. This guy is not for men's rights. Well, we'll all agree on that one. Thank you. We've got the YouTube channel as well, and we're available. We've got an app, and we're there on your radio, DAB+. You can't get away from us. Back after this.
Now, a man believed to be the intended target of the shooting in Liverpool that killed 9-year-old girl Olivia Pratt-Coble has been identified as Joseph Nee.
He's 35 years of age. He's a convicted burglar, convicted drug dealer. He's from Dovecot. He's understood to be in a stable condition after being shot in the attack.
Well, Merseyside police have refused to publicly identify Nee, but say the man injured in the shooting would be recalled to prison for breaching the terms of his release. Well, we can speak now to our Northwest reporter, Sophie Repo, who's been on the scene for us the last 2 days. Good morning, Sophie. What's the latest there?
Dangerous driving during an incident in which...
Yeah, good morning to you both. Well, last night some CCTV footage was released in which the 4 gunshots from the night of Olivia Pratt-Coble's murder can be heard. Now, nothing has been confirmed yet, but it's believed that the first 2 shots, the first was the shot that hit Olivia's mum Cheryl in the wrist as she tried to keep the door closed. The second, perhaps, was the shot that proved fatal to the 9-year-old schoolgirl. A little bit later we hear a further 2 shots, which is understood to be the 2 shots were the continued attack of the gunman on the man, the 35-year-old man, which he pursued down this road behind me before he sought refuge in Olivia's family home. That man has now been named as 35-year-old convicted burglar Joseph Nee. He was shot twice and taken to hospital. And he was yesterday arrested, Merseyside police said, for breaching the conditions of his prison release. And the police have also now said he will be questioned in relation to Olivia's murder. A manhunt is still underway to find the culprit behind Olivia's death, and police are still urging members of the community who may have any information to come forward. They say now is not the time to be tight-lipped. Now is the time to come forward to help them find the man responsible for the death of the 9-year-old schoolgirl.
Reaper, you've been on the scene for the past 2 days. I'm sure you're going to continue to keep us up to date here on GB News.
OK, with that, we reflect back on the big stories of the day, and we do that alongside the broadcast editor of The Spectator, and that is Cindy Yu. Very good to see you, Cindy. But if you were in the metaverse, you might look totally different. Totally different. We're going to talk about Matt Hancock. We might as well give people a laugh here. So he's the former, what was he, health secretary? What was he? Yeah. And anyway, so he was caught in what's the word I'm looking for? An embrace. Yes.
Compromising position.
Yes. During lockdown and whatever. And anyway, tell us this story and tell us what the metaverse is.
Yeah, so of course viewers remember that compromising position is why he lost his job as health secretary after a little bit of back and forth. Now he seems to be going back to his true passion of tech. Do people remember the Matt Hancock app that he developed which is like a Facebook equivalent that he did when he was culture secretary? So he loves tech.
Nope.
But he's going back into that, and he is talking about cryptocurrencies. He's talking about the metaverse.
But have we got this picture? Have we got this picture of him?
It would be great if we did. Yeah, so this is what one company for a speaking engagement that Matt Hancock did about the metaverse, which I guess is just like The Sims for the future.
Well, I hope they sign me up. Have we got a picture of him in real life?
It's quite flattering to his upper half. I mean, I was
about to say, it's not very realistic, is it, Cindy? I mean, he's beefed himself up quite a lot there. He's spent a lot of time in the gym in the metaverse, that's for sure.
So it's just quite funny because anyone who knows Hancock tells you that he's, just is this internally optimistic person.
Is he?
Who's very, very cheerful and just doesn't get beaten down. I mean, look at the circumstances he left frontline politics, and he's still back at it talking about various things. And, companies are lapping it up because he's just so enthusiastic about it. And I'm sure he looked at that picture of himself and had a good laugh himself as well.
Certainly very flattering of him, that's for sure. Right, let's look at the Spectator front page, Cindy. Rishi Sunak, this is, hitting out the government. He's saying that they didn't listen to his anti-lockdown views.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so Rishi Sunak has given an interview to The Spectator talking about basically behind the scenes of the last 2 years of lockdowns. How did it happen that we had repeated lockdowns without this kind of cost-benefit analysis of the social impact, the economic impacts? I mean, GCSE results are coming out today. We are still living with all of this now.
Yeah.
And Rishi Sunak, what he reveals is a picture of a top-down government where the cabinet wasn't even involved, where SAGE had basically very little oversight. These were scientists whose primary goal, of course, was to save lives, but there was no counterpart to SAGE. There was no economic committee looking at the impact elsewhere, or social impact, or mental health, or anything like that. And when Rishi Sunak sat around the cabinet table, often he would be the only person, he says, he would be the only person giving that view. Now, of course, the implication of him giving this interview to The Spectator is that Liz Truss, his contender, didn't do the same kind of scrutinisation of the government's plans. But also, if you talk to people within Number 10 from that time, it does seem to correspond largely to what happened, that there was just not enough scrutiny.
The only thing is, Cindy, we were all scared out of our wits. We didn't know what would happen, including SAGE. Most people didn't know the effects of this awful coronavirus and how deadly it was. It was a sort of question maybe of better safe than sorry. I mean, hindsight is a great thing, and there's absolutely no doubt the lockdown has decimated our economy and a lot of people's lives, mentally, socially, whatever. But at the end of the day, would they have made the same call if we were in that situation again? If it was all at the start again? It's
Well, I think what's particularly interesting is what he says about the lockdown that didn't happen last Christmas. So if you remember Omicron coming over. And at that point, Sage again was saying lockdown and giving some quite scary numbers about what would happen if you didn't lock down. Rishi Sunak says that he campaigned against that. He says that he persuaded Boris Johnson to bring the cabinet in to the discussion, and all of the cabinet supported Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak in not having a lockdown. And we didn't need one in the end.
I mean, you could look at Sage, you could say it's not that they were wrong. Their advice was right, because if you don't lock down, this will spread. And it did spread. But what wasn't calculated is how it would really just decimate the economy.
Yes, I think that's right. I think not blaming the scientists, it's just that they were doing their job. But their job was fundamentally limited in a remit. But government should have seen all of the other sides. And it's just interesting that there was someone in the government saying that, but wasn't really being listened to. I mean, he's coming out now, and you can, of course, see it through the lens of the Tory leadership. Of course, he would say that and all this kind of stuff. But again, as I say, it does correspond with what other people say about what happened behind the scenes back then.
OK, Cindy, thank you so much. I think we're now going to go and talk about GCSEs, but stay with us because we have got another story we're going to talk to you about. This is your own column in The Spectator, so we'll come back to that. But for now, let's look at GCSE Results Day, because it is that day for English, Welsh and Northern Irish students this morning. Most expected to find out what their future holds at around 10 o'clock this morning. It's coming around very quickly now. And joining us now is the Minister of State for School Standards, Will Quince. Good morning to you, Mr Quince, and thank you so much for joining us. First of all, what's your message to students who are picking up their results today? It's the first exam since the pandemic. They won't be teacher assessed. This is all their own work.
Morning, Ellie. Morning, Eamonn, and thank you very much for having me on the show. You're absolutely right. It's a day of great celebration because there are thousands of young people today picking up their results, and I want to say a huge well done and congratulations to every single one of them, and also a huge thank you to the teachers and school staff up and down the country that have supported them, and of course their parents and carers.
Yeah, so today children are being told to brace themselves for results that will not be as good. I mean, but surely they'll just pander out the way the A-level results have been, which is the in-person results will be up on the last time, but based against teacher assessment, the results will probably be down. But that's not a bad situation to be in, is it?
Well, you're spot on, Eamonn, and that is exactly the plan. So this is the first time that we've gone back to examinations since 2019, but we haven't just gone back purely to examinations. We've gone back to examinations, but with adaptations. So young people recognising the disruption that they've faced over the last couple of years. Things like having knowledge about what's going to be in exam papers, having a choice about the questions that you choose to answer, but also Ofqual's approach to grading. So as a result, a bit like A-levels, what we're expecting to see is results that are higher than 2019, which is when we last had examinations, but higher than 2021, when, as you rightly say, we had those teacher-assessed grades.
Well, I wanted to get your reaction to this NSPCC statement that's out today saying the number of children seeking counselling for exam stress this year has reached record levels. What's your reaction to that? Do you think that's down to the pandemic, down to the fact that there haven't been exams the past 2 years? Or do you think this is a very sensitive snowflake generation, some would say?
So I don't think it's the latter, Ellie, and I think it's actually a good thing in schools now. We're encouraging young people to talk about their mental well-being and mental health, and not just the pupils, but staff too. What we've seen over the course of the pandemic is, of course, an increase in anxiety. That was inevitable, especially with children being off school. But inevitably, as also when you approach examinations for the first time in nearly 3 years, there is going to be that anxiousness. I remember 22 years ago sitting my GCSEs and 20 years ago my A-levels. It is an anxious time. What we do, however, know is that young people are telling us that examinations, they believe, are the fairest and best way of grading them and assessing them against their peers. But we're also putting record amounts into mental health support in schools through mental health leadership programs, so actual people in schools, but also mental health support teams in schools too, because we know young people do need that support.
I just want to have a broader conversation or your view on the Blair Institute findings this week were under former Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair, and they're saying, I mean, he was the man with the great mantra, education, 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 but now his institute is saying, well, actually, our exams like A-levels and GCSEs are not fit for purpose. They do not educate, they don't take into account what the workplace needs from the potential workforce will be the students who are sitting these exams now. And I was wondering, when you were doing your GCSEs 22 years ago, can you reflect on that and can you think, did that do me any good, or really I should have learnt more about home economics or about economics in general, about how to get a mortgage, or about my bodily health, or something that was just more practical? When is the time going to come? Are we going to evolve these examinations and make them more relevant to the pupil's life and indeed to the employers' lives as to who they're looking for in their workforce?
Well, it's a shame, Eamonn, that Mr. Education, Education, Education didn't do it in his 10 years whilst Prime Minister, if he believes so strongly in it. But what I would say to Tony Blair is this. On a day that we're celebrating the success of thousands of young people getting their GCSEs, does he think it's a helpful thing for a former Prime Minister to be encouraging the government to scrap them? And the second point I would make is this to Tony, is that young people have faced unprecedented disruption over the past few years. That's why we've put those adaptations in place. And what he's calling for is significant further disruption by overhauling the GCSE and A-level system. So I'm not going to listen to his calls on that. But what we are doing, Eamonn, is reflecting the fact that businesses are telling us they want schools to do far more, especially around some of the interpersonal and communication skills. And schools up and down the country are taking that message on board because they want more people to be work ready and have some of the skills alongside a knowledge-rich curriculum, which we currently have.
What you're saying is maybe you can see an evolution on this front, on what the curriculum is that's taught, rather than a revolution.
That's absolutely right. So we're already seeing it. So as part of our HSE, we've got first aid, we've got financial information. And yes, we need to do more. I want young people to be leaving school knowing what APR is, what a mortgage is, why not to take out a high interest credit card, what the impact of that would have on them. I want them to be able to cook. We're working at the moment to see what more we can do around ensuring all children leave being able to cook at least 6 core meals. So I think we're already doing a lot of this work, but on the day that thousands of young people are getting their GCSE results, to call for them to be scrapped, I think it's just irresponsible, and I think it would be hugely disappointing to hear a former Prime Minister calling for that on the day that they should be celebrating, rightly, their incredible success and hard work.
Well, Quince, I just wanted to ask you, on the eve of this energy hike, there are calls for energy bills to be frozen. We're going to see the energy price cap rise to £3,500 tomorrow. Obviously, a worst-case scenario for so many people. It's only set to get worse. We've still got 2 weeks left of this Tory leadership contest. What needs to happen once that new leader takes office on the 5th of September?
Well, Ellie, you're right that there are people up and down the country that are really worried about the announcement tomorrow for the energy price cap, which will then kick in October. We've got the £37 billion announcement already, so that's seen the first cost of living payment be made and the council tax rebate. And then in October, you'll see £400 for every household. So around 8 million of the most vulnerable households will get about £1,200 over the course of the next few months. But I'm acutely aware of how worried people are. I know the two leadership contenders are too. That's exactly why they've already made clear that in just over 2 weeks' time, we'll have a new Prime Minister, a new ministerial team, a new cabinet and a new government. And what we'll then see is a fiscal event. And I have no doubt that there will be a further package of support which will reflect the concerns that people have.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Will Quincy. Really good to have you on the programme this morning.
Thank you. Busy day. Appreciate your time, Minister. Did you enjoy school?
Loved school.
No, I loved school
you?
too. I loved school too. I loved school too.
Good.
I was quite lost when I left school, and there was things that I learnt that, there's subjects like geography and geology, which I got GCSEs in, and you never see. They're really useful because you never see the world in the same way again. You never see the landscape the same way again. And then there's things that I've just never understood the point of certain things that you're taught. For instance, I I very much appreciate Shakespeare. I don't pretend to understand it. I mean, I have an A at A-level English literature and English language, but I don't, I just think, do you really have to, you know, cram Shakespeare into people's heads?
No, see, I don't know. I just agree with you on that. I think, well, it's not practically helpful to my life, but it gives me an appreciation. And now, when I go to the theatre or when I'm reading, I think I've got an English literature degree, so I actually really enjoy reading. But I do think, we were talking about this yesterday, it would be really good to just have some more practical lessons in school. I'd love to have known how to get a mortgage. I'd love to have known how to save. That would have been a lot more useful if I had it a little bit earlier on in my life, perhaps. There's just so many practical things that we're not taught in school.
About medicines to put into your body, about how food can be a medicine or a poison. I think that's very, very important.
I don't think anybody realises how much you're taxed in this country until you
Absolutely
start
right.
working. I mean, nothing like this is taught in schools. So perhaps, on some level, there might be a point to be said for
saving. You're right to actually
saving.
learn. And you know, to this day, I don't understand pensions. I don't understand what
Neither do I.
I know, and the thing is, the most boring subject, yet it's the most necessary thing to know about. And you know, I think that sort of thing. Basically, I suppose the earlier you save, the more well off's not the right thing, but the more insured you will be in the future.
And prepared you are
Yeah.
for things to happen, like an energy crisis, you know, like a global recession. You've got money in the bank for when it gets really tough.
Yeah.
So I think we should overhaul the education system, really. I think that's
I would have liked to have been a teacher.
You'd be a really good teacher, Eamonn. You're very engaging.
It says, I'll Holmesy coming in for this period. We've got him.
You'd be very good. You should think about that.
Gosh, we used to get hit with rulers and sticks and dusters and...
Did you get told off at
goodness
school?
Everything.
Were you chatting?
Not really.
heads?
No, I was quite a good pupil. I was quite good. But I thoroughly enjoyed school. Thoroughly did.
Yeah.
We've got Cindy Yu here with us now, and we were talking, just going back to, we were just reminiscing about school. A total different story for you in China. I wonder what your experience was like compared to ours.
Oh my God. I switched school between primary and secondary between China and the UK. And in school in China, you have to sit like this.
Yes.
Completely upright. And if you want to put your hand up, you have to do this.
Yes.
So when I first came over, all the other kids in the UK were thinking, what's wrong with that? So I really had to kind of unbreak myself.
But they probably thought how well disciplined you were. The teachers probably
I've
loved
got good
you.
posture. I've still got good posture.
Very nice, neat uniform as well.
Yeah.
And do you get in China, do you get kind of life lessons or anything practical like that, or is it still very much...
No, it's really academic, actually.
Yeah.
Really academic. In fact, you can't get into university without having some kind of basic level of English, even if your degree is not about English. So it's very constricted in terms of, you know, these other things you're going to learn.
Was your school day longer or shorter than the British school day?
Longer.
Which was?
So, I mean,
Start
at the point at which I left, probably started at 8 and finished at maybe 5.
Yeah.
But that was primary
It's a
school.
lot longer than a...
That was primary school, and it gets exponentially worse as you go into secondary school, and that was one of the reasons we moved, so that I didn't have to go through that.
Well, the one thing I would like to have stayed on longer in school, secondary school particularly, simply if you were doing homework, that you had a sort of homework class, because I don't believe that parents are equipped and home life is equipped for kids to come back and then say, Mom, Dad, can you help me with this, or I need that, or whatever. I think homework shouldn't be done at home, it should be done at school.
Yeah, that's a fair idea. I mean...
What have you got to tell us about Boris Johnson and going to Ukraine?
Yes, so yesterday, of course, was Ukraine's Independence Day, which is also the 6-month anniversary of the Russian invasion, so a very special and poignant occasion. Boris Johnson, who has now, you know, been kicked out of the British government but turned into some kind of Ukrainian national hero. You know, there are buns being sold in Ukrainian bakeries called the Boris bun with his kind of signature hair. Of course, visits Zelensky again. And I'm sure President Zelensky very much appreciates Boris Johnson's support in all of this. And it comes at a time when the UK and the US have announced more aid, more weaponry to give to Ukraine's war chest.
Cindy, in the 1 minute that we've got left, I didn't realise that you actually had a column in The Spectator this week. Was this a an interview about Liz Truss, or...?
No, so basically Liz Truss has defunded an organisation set up by the Foreign Office that she deems too cosy with China. Now, the official reason is budget cuts, but I've spoken to people close to her who say actually the reason is because they speak to people like the Chinese ambassador. But my point in my column is, well, we need to talk to the Chinese, actually. It's probably quite helpful to understand where Beijing comes from. You don't have to empathise with it or excuse it, but to understand it, and then you can challenge it. So defunding centres of expertise like the Great Britain China Centre, I think is a bit of an own goal at this very critical juncture where we need to understand, well, know thy enemy, right?
OK, good thought to finish on. Cindy, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate that. Folks, most of all, appreciate you watching and listening to our little show today. It's Stephen and Anne for the next few days, and then I'll be back on Monday with Isabel. Bank holiday Monday, so that's it. See, working, no time off for the wicked.
No.
We'll
the team is back together on Monday, and thanks for having me the last 4 days.
Not at all.
As
not
well.
At all.
Up next, it's Tom Harwood with the briefing.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn McGivern from the Met Office. A wet start with some heavy rain expected in the southeast, sunny spells elsewhere, and those brighter conditions will work their way southeastwards, along with a fresher feel, certainly compared with how things felt in the southeast on Wednesday. That fresher air already into the north and the west arrives behind a cold front which will clear during the next few hours East Anglia and the southeast. But for a time, certainly some heavy and persistent wet weather for the likes of Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex into Kent, parts of London. By the afternoon, much of that's petering out, and brighter skies follow slowly but surely across central and eventually eastern parts of England. Those brighter skies will bring plenty of sunny spells for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, and temperatures at around average. But it will be breezy to the northwest of Scotland, and that breeze will push a few showers into central and western Scotland, 1 or 2 for Northern Ireland, and then through the evening some more persistent rain arriving into western Scotland as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Cloudier here overnight, but elsewhere clear spells, 1 or 2 mist patches, but otherwise a fresh night to come. A more comfortable night for sleeping, 12 to 15 Celsius. However, we start off Friday with those outbreaks of showery rain into western and southwestern Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, and eventually western parts of England as well as West Wales. The rain turns more to scattered showers in the south, but there'll be some heavy and prolonged downpours for southern Scotland and northwest England in particular, and a lot of cloud cover in a zone from central Scotland through to western England as well as Wales. Either side of that, some sunny spells and temperatures at around average for the time of year, 24 Celsius in London, 18 to 22 generally elsewhere. Saturday and Sunday we'll see high pressure building in across the UK. There'll be some rain in the far northwest across western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it'll be drier elsewhere.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Education, education, education. The words of one Tony